There we go. All done. for
Well, here we
setting the
go
course for
again.
landing by Starliner out in New Mexico, an hour and 2 minutes from now. Richard Jones
It didn't
pulled
make
his
it
time,
up, but now it's
and
coming down.
everyone is go.
See if it can come down.
Spending one last bit of work that needs to be done on the propulsion officer's side, just making sure that manifold valve is open on the orbital maneuvering and attitude control system. That should happen about 10 minutes before the deorbit burn.
So the first step in getting there, of course, and getting back to New Mexico is the deorbit burn, and that is coming up at 6:23 Eastern Time. And that is going to be a 55-second burn firing using 4 of the orbital maneuvering and control engines on Starliner. To get ready for that, the team here on the ground is disconnecting Starliner's solar arrays and radiators. The spacecraft has enough power to get home now, and its sublimators will take over cooling. Teams around America taking part in today's landing operations. One of those teams is, of course, down at White Sands, New Mexico, at the landing site, and we're going out there now to Boeing's Josh Barrett and NASA's Dan Hewitt.
Landings, I imagine this setup looks quite a lot different. How do you expect this to go?
Yeah, it is vastly different. I mean, if you follow the International Space Station, we've been landing our astronauts in Kazakhstan in the Soyuz for several years now, and it's a lot of airborne assets. It's an extremely remote area, so there's no way to really drive on except in limited vehicles. One of the nice things about bringing landings like this back to America is we're much closer to cities, much better infrastructure, things like that. So it's great to see the convoy lined up. We've had a lot of exercises with the teams out here just over the last year or so as they've refined all of their procedures and everything to get ready for this landing. It's running like a well-oiled machine now. There's a bunch of different teams. Everybody's color-coded, so they all have their specific jobs, but it's great to see. Why don't we walk through some of the teams and what they're going to be doing today?
Yeah, so let's start over here, Tim. Why don't you follow me? So let's go up here. We'll kind of go line by line for the convoy. So we have our command vehicle up front here. That's where our recovery operations leader is and our recovery director. Those are the two guys who are really in charge of this whole operation, make sure the procedures go exactly as planned. Right behind them, we have our gold team. They have a very important job. They're the first to the vehicle, and they actually sniff for hydrazine. Now, the crew module uses hydrazine as a propellant, and if it does turn into a vapor, it can be very toxic and damaging to your health if you inhale it. So they will be full up in escape hazmat-style suits protected from that hydrazine. They use these special sensors to sniff for it and make sure the rest of the recovery convoy can come up to the vehicle. Now, going over here, the next line, we have our silver team. They're right behind gold team after gold team clears it. Their first job is to ground the vehicle. So the vehicle will be powered down, but there could be some residual electricity on it. And so before anyone can touch the vehicle, they're actually going to ground the vehicle and discharge any electricity from it. Then up next is blue team. That's us, or the blue vest. We're in charge of showing everyone what's going on. We've got situational awareness cameras, all of the microwave equipment to get back to our satellite uplink and make sure you guys can see this recovery effort. Next, we're going over here to the green team. So you see these big HVAC trailers right here. They're going to hook those up to the crew module to get some ground cooling on it. But their very first job, since it's so cold, it's 22 degrees, they're going to put an environmental enclosure on the crew module. It looks kind of like a big inflatable crew module sized bouncy house,
I don't know,
but it's going to wrap around the vehicle, hug it, and we're going to get some warm air on the crew module and make sure the propellant lines don't freeze. And then after them is the red team. They're a lot of fun to watch.
I don't know if we've got any information.
They are mostly Boeing Fire Rescue employees. Let's go
scheduled at 7:57 a.m. Eastern Time, but I'd have to do a time calculation for that for here.
On the crew module, that gives our teams access to the hatch.
Just
right
under
now,
an
since
hour.
there's no astronauts on board, we're just going to open up the hatch. One of our engineers, Selena Dopart, is going to go inside and run a couple of tests. But on a crew landing, that's where the crew will come out of the vehicle and be taken into this medical truck right here behind me for their initial post-landing medical checkups. And that's pretty much the convoy. So I'm going to go back here over with Dan.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Great walkthrough. And as you can tell, he's really wanting to keep moving because it is pretty cold out here for the teams today. We are on the blue team, and we are going to be bringing you guys a couple of different views, hopefully, of the capsule today. There's a bunch of assets.
It's just you, Carl.
Which is just about 100 yards or so away from us. There's some tracker cameras on one of the main trucks that drive out here, the MDTV, the
MLCC. So we have our MDTV, that's mobile data and tracking vehicle. It's got
Can somebody in
3
here
cameras
check
on
to
it.
see if
2
there's
of
an
them are
echo
visible,
in the
one
live
of them
stream?
is infrared, and since it's so dark out, that's probably what we'll be relying on. And
No echo here.
Mobile command
Well, it must
vehicle,
be
the
Carl
mobile
then.
landing
Yeah, it's always
control
Carl.
center. Those guys are looped in with Houston. And, you know, that's really our link back to mission control. That is where the notification that the crew module has landed will come through. They will relay that to us on our field radios, and this whole thing's going to get moving.
Yeah, and so in addition to those assets, we'll have a couple more ground track cameras that we'll be looking to bring views of Starliner coming down for. And once again, we're going to have a WB-57 in the air, hopefully getting some views of Starliner as it's doing that entry interface, so plunging through the Earth's atmosphere, and then watching the parachutes come out, the heat shield jettison, a number of different things. So we are working to bring you all those views during the live
Why couldn't they
coverage
do this
today.
in the daytime
It is
so we
dark,
could see?
so it's not going to be the prettiest picture,
It's
but we should
definitely
have some
on
great shots of Starliner coming down.
And I do want to
something to
reiterate
do with
the team
orbital
was being
mechanics.
trained actually
Oh,
a couple months
any
ago. We were
excuse.
right here at this very landing site,
Yeah.
training in pitch black conditions. We were reporting at 1 a.m. It was quite a bit warmer.
It was. It was.
But it's a spectator thing, so you think they'd take into consideration for us to see it. That's very inconsiderate of them.
First American orbital capsule to land on land.
Yeah, and there's going to be a couple of events on the way down, and I know Steve and Brandy are going to walk you guys through this quite a bit, but we're going to be looking for a couple of key things after that entry interface. So once they're through the atmosphere, that forward heat shield's going to come off and descend under parachutes. The drogue chutes are going to come out, and once those have done the initial steadying of the vehicle, the pilots will deploy and then bring out the main parachutes, which is going to do the vast bulk of the slowing. And then once we get down a little bit lower, I think a couple thousand feet off the ground still.
About 3,000, yeah.
About 3,000, that heat shield's going to pop off, and that's going to reveal the landing airbags, which will inflate and then allow Starliner to come down nice and soft on the ground. What's that final speed as we touch down again, Josh?
It's about 28 feet per second. I know you asked for miles an hour.
I think we're about 19 miles an hour.
But that's still a very soft landing, especially under those airbags. All the testing we've done, even on worst case scenarios with airbags out, coming down faster than we predicted, the loads on the crew were actually lower than we predicted in our analyses. So that's a good surprise to have.
Yeah, and a lot of the operations that we're going to see today will be
Well,
very
sunrise is
close to the exact
7:03.
same as when we have a crew on board. Some of the obvious things that will be different is we're not going to be pulling anybody out of the capsule
Well, that's
today.
cutting it close
we don't
then,
quite
'cause-
have all of the same medical personnel that would come. If you've ever seen a Soyuz landing, it's
7:04
very common for the
East
crew to come
Coast.
out, and then they always have a flight doctor with
Well, that
them,
means
a
the
flight
sun's
surgeon,
just coming up
somebody who's
now.
assigned to a crew member before their flight, during flight, and after, just to
Well,
provide
7:04.
care. Nurses
What
and a number
says
of
is
other
a couple
personnel
of,
who are just kind of there on location
ones on
for the
Orbital.
crew. We
So-
know
It's
that
it's further
space
inland.
After 6 months is a little jarring on the body,
Yeah.
so we make sure and do the best
What?
we can to take
It's on
care
the
of
West
the crew
Coast.
members once they're
Ah.
back on terra
Yeah.
firma.
Yeah,
you
know, you watch
White
a lot
Sands,
of
I
Russian
think,
landings,
probably
the crew
mountain.
members are assisted out, and that's actually why
White Sands
we
is
have
New
our,
Mexico.
fire rescue Boeing
Yeah,
fire teams
New
here.
Mexico's
They're trained in
completely
enclosed
Western.
area rescue. They're going to actually go in and extricate those crew members, and that's actually a word I learned recently. There's a difference between extrication and
2 hours.
evacuation. Extrication is actually going in and pulling someone out of a vehicle. So that's what our firefighters will be doing. And I will say they're
What
They're
people in
fantastic
there?
to watch.
They
These
said there was
guys work
nobody
so
in
well
it.
together, pulling that platform up to the crew module, opening up
There
that
are.
hatch, and getting access to
They're
those crew
treating
members.
it like
I
there
know everyone's
was.
curious
Oh,
about what
okay,
Ozie's doing.
okay.
We're not going to see
There
her
is
get
there
pulled
is
out of the vehicle today. She's actually
thingy
pretty
duct
heavy.
cabin in there that is
Anthropometric
simulating a
test
crew
devices are
member
loaded down
Yeah.
with a lot of weights
to
and sensors and stuff, so
crash
it'll be
tested up.
work to get her out. So we're going to leave her there for now, but she's all right.
Yeah, and we do have some of those crew members that are going to be flying on Starliner. They are here with the teams observing all of the operations today. Among them, the crew flight test. So the first astronauts that are going to fly on Starliner, Chris Ferguson from Boeing, and then Nicole Mann and Mike Fink.
No one.
From
It hasn't
NASA.
landed
we
yet.
also have Sunny Williams on site with us, and she's going to be actually flying in this Starliner that's coming home today.
Yeah, so I'm sure this is a really special moment for her, seeing her spacecraft come down, but we've got a lot to get through. As our Senior Vice President, Jim Chilton, said yesterday to the media, this stuff is not for the faint of heart. We have a lot to prove here, and landing, there's no point in sending people to space if you can't bring them home safely, so this is a very critical operation.
Yeah, well, we're going to bring you as much video as we possibly can on the way out. We're going to have some cameras rigged up, and we'll be on the ground with the capsule once it's down. And again, we'll be looking for some airborne and some ground traffic.
Pardon?
Just so that you know, the Starliner is actually just about to go past Australia, New Zealand and stuff, heading up towards America now. So it's probably about near on about 800. It's going to pass about 800 k's south of Tasmania.
Okay.
I'll see if I can just screenshot up there as soon as possible.
Is it me or is it your sounds mucking up again?
My sound could be mucking up. Is that better?
Yeah, a little bit better.
Might be Zoom as well.
It sounds like your daughter's locked you in the basement again, Peter.
It will not. It's basically going to be disposed of, and the crew module is what will fly then through the heat of re-entry and on over the skies of New Mexico, where Dan and Josh are waiting to retrieve it.
And that will all get kicked off with a deorbit burn coming up in 15 minutes now. But while we wait for that to take place, we are going to talk now with Starliner engineer Jim May, who's been standing by to tell us a little bit more about the deorbit process and what we've already accomplished on this mission.
Responsibility on this program is making sure that the way we train is safe enough for us to fly. The astronauts are actually pretty easy to work with. So we make their flight more difficult. Nominally, we want a flight to go fully autonomous all the way to station with no problems. But in the event of an emergency, we have to train the crew to be able to react to those emergencies in a safely and timely manner. So we make their job as hard as possible by adding as many problems as we can during the training sessions. Chris Ferguson was my hiring manager. He was the first person I talked to on this program when I got started. And so making sure both your friend, your manager, your astronauts representing your country, making sure that they're safe is extremely important to me.
Welcome, Jim.
Morning.
Jim, one of the questions we've been asked is whether the mission elapsed time problem that crept into the orbital insertion burn could cause an issue today during this phase, during this deorbit landing phase. Tell us how the software has been tested in the past 2 days to confirm that this problem is not going to show itself again.
Sure. So the mission elapsed time has been updated. The flight control team, Richard Jones, they recognized that. We're able to command the vehicle to change its mission elapsed time, which then goes into all of the flight management computers. So all the computers are now in agreement with what the mission elapsed time should be, and all of the continuing automated flight features that use that time are going to follow it and have been successfully following it ever since.
That's great news. So I know that the software is really able to do a lot for Starliner and handles a lot of the mission events, but how does that interact with the team here in Mission Control?
The team in mission control is watching what the flight control system is going to tell the vehicle what to do. So there are parts of the spacecraft inside of the flight software that say, hey, this is where the vehicle needs to point, and this is where the vehicle is going to need to go to in the future in order to do things like deorbit or rendezvous and things of that nature. So the flight control team on the ground is looking at that data and maybe making updates to it should they be wanting to make any changes to the flight plan in the future. But the ground control team always knows where the vehicle is going to be pointed, where it's pointed now, and everything that it wants to do to remain on the flight plan as designed.
And Jim, you've been working this program for a while. Tell me about some of the things. How are you feeling with the way? I mean, just to see that Starliner is up in space and now it's getting ready to come home. What are some of the things going through your mind now?
You know, this next phase of flight is a very critical one. It's one that we actually train a lot of the crew for most extensively, and so I'm looking forward to seeing the spacecraft fly the automated reentry plan just as we designed. Because that's all we care about. The most thing we care about the most is the safety of the crew. So seeing that the automated flight plan can go as expected is great, because we are also training the flight crews to be able to take over should there ever be any issues if they need to.
And Jim, when you look at some of the other aspects of this flight, the brilliant launch yesterday, and how tough was it for the team to execute some of those demonstrations that were performed? Was that a problem at all, or did the spacecraft really perform the way it was supposed to?
You know, once we have the spacecraft in a stable orbit, we've been able to perform the demos just like we planned, just at a slightly different orbit. So being able to test the propulsion systems, looking at the vision, the navigation system, being able to check out the star tracker, which is telling the vehicle where it is relative to stars, relative to the sun. All of those things have been working just as planned. The flight control team has been able to follow the flight plan for each of the demos exactly as we wanted to do it. So all the systems have been working nominally since then, and doing everything we need to do to check out the vehicle for crewed flight.
And I guess coming up will be another big demonstration with Starliner making its way back to Earth.
Exactly.
Can you walk us through some of the events that we'll be seeing over the course of the deorbit and landing?
Sure. So we're going to do a deorbit burn, which is going to take the Starliner at the altitude that it's at and lower the future altitude so it actually comes into the atmosphere. Where it comes into the atmosphere is a place called entry interface. Once the spacecraft enters the atmosphere, it is then going to start controlling itself by doing turns and firing its thrusters to keep the spacecraft coming down towards our preferred landing zone at White Sands. And so while the spacecraft is maneuvering, it can change how far left or right it's going to go. It can change how far or how close it's going to come down on the ground. And all of those things that are going to be done by the automated flight system. Once we have come through the atmosphere and slowed ourselves down enough, we're actually going to fire some drogue parachutes to slow the vehicle down. From there, we'll pop out the heat shield, pull out the airbags, and then we'll pull out the main parachutes to come down on a nice soft landing in White Sands.
And Jim, we had the early difficulty with the mission elapsed timer, and it's really all.
Dora, that time should be West Coast, I think. That you were saying, Alan? Oh, not West Coast, New Mexico.
So just for the people out in the chat, just so you've got an idea, at the moment its current velocity is 7.75 kilometres a second. It's just going past Tasmania as we're speaking, and about to start heading back up towards America. There's a picture in Discord if you wanted to put it up, Terry.
You're going to have to get your audio sorted out, Peter.
Is that better? Is that better?
No.
I can't turn it up any further, Terry.
And I guess it will have just a little bit shorter journey. Normally it takes about, 45 minutes for Starliner to get down after its deorbit burn, but it's a little closer to 30 this time.
That's correct. That just has to do with how long it takes from the deorbit burn for the altitude to slowly come down, because our trajectory is no longer a circular trajectory around the Earth. It's going to be coming down in a lower path.
And we can see from our monitors here in Mission Control that Starliner is going through the orientation steps ahead of this deorbit burn that's coming up in just a few minutes. Jim, you're watching this. You're watching this closely. What are you thinking so far?
Everything's looking good right now. We've got the vehicle pointed where we need to do the deorbit burn. It looks like the flight control team is all happy. GNC, my background from school, I'm happy now because that's the type of thing that I really studied for. So we're looking good for the deorbit burn.
We're hearing here in Mission Control that the Starliner is on its way into burn attitude now. So that'll be getting us in place for the deorbit burn coming up just 7 minutes and 30 seconds from now.
And at this point, Starliner is crossing below.
No, Dory, it sounds
Australia
like it's happening more quicker than 2 hours.
Over the Pacific. It is going to fly back on what is called an ascending node, which basically means it's coming up from south to north on this pass, going over Baja California, and then over New Mexico on its way to White Sands.
Can you hear me now?
Part of the team here, of course, that's been working throughout this mission, the flight directors, they each have their own teams, and the on-orbit team is led by Bob Dempsey. Bob Dempsey is an astronomer at first, and is a veteran flight controller for Space Station and now for Starliner. Here's a look at Bob Dempsey.
That NASA was doing, space shuttle, probes around Jupiter, stuff like that. But when I came here and became a flight director, I realized it's not the technology, it's the people. My call sign, and therefore my team name, is Galileo Flight. That's an homage to the fact that I'm by training an astronomer, so I had that heritage coming in here, always interested in exploring. When the chief of the flight director's office called me, I was very surprised. Of course, I'd applied and hoped to be selected, but I really thought the odds were pretty limited because it's a small contingent of people. In fact, there's been less flight directors than astronauts in the history of NASA.
And as we mentioned, Richard Jones is back on console today to bring us in for a landing. Here's a look at what he had to say.
The role of the flight director, to put it simply, the flight director makes decisions. I make decisions. And as the mission is continuing, whatever timeline that we're following, whether it's pre-launch, ascent, on orbit, docked, during entry, a lot of questions come up in terms of how we want to proceed, because sometimes the script isn't always written for whatever we're doing at the time. We may suffer a failure. We may have to react to different priorities, whatever is changing. And so the flight director's role is to take all of that information in, and all of the systems information, the human element, if astronauts are on that vehicle, and make a decision on how to proceed or not to proceed. Sometimes the answer is not to go forward with something. So it's really just about decision making.
The other members of our STAR team of flight directors are Ed Van Sice, who was covering the what we call the third shift, and also Mike Lammers, who is sitting with Richard Jones today. He's been kind of the weather flight director for both launch and landing. Also, at the flight control console, you've got a couple of Capcoms on shift with us. We have Tracy Caldwell Dyson and Josh Cassida. Josh is actually scheduled to take his own flight on this Starliner that is currently in space now. He'll be on the second crewed flight of Starliner. Each of those Each of those teams spent about 9 hours in mission control at a time, with 1 hour on either end of the shift devoted to handover for the oncoming team. And together, these teams have seen Starliner safely through the mission thus far, put it in the best configuration for a successful landing, coming up in just 37 minutes now.
37 minutes down to New Mexico. The GNC position here reports that Starliner is in the correct attitude for its deorbit burn that is coming up at this point. The service module and the crew module are both still attached to each other. It will be the service module's OMAC engines, 4 of them, the orbital maneuvering and control engines, that will power the deorbit burn. They are each 1,500-pound class thrusters, meaning that this 55-second burn will be about 6,000 pounds of thrust that will slow Starliner from its current orbital velocity and let it fall into the atmosphere and ultimately fly to New Mexico and touch down in White Sands.
Those OMACs are just about done with their duty for this mission, but they will also help us move the service module away from the crew module once the 2 of them disconnect after the deorbit burn. That burn's coming up in just a little over 2 minutes now. Everything still looking good here in the room. Everyone quiet and working through their last steps to get ready for it.
And after the deorbit burn, we'll be looking at a what is called entry interface, which is basically the point at which the hottest part of atmospheric reentry begins. This is the point when Starliner's heat shield will face its biggest test. It's going to get up to 3,000 degrees, and the plasma will form around the spacecraft. The heat shield is going to provide a barrier to that. It's an ablative heat shield of Boeing's design, and that's going to protect Starliner and all of its systems.
That's a lot to protect it from. 3,000 degrees is almost 1,000 degrees hotter than lava, so it's got quite a job ahead of it, and all that takes place about 75 miles above Earth.
So we are about 1 minute 13 seconds away from the deorbit burn here. Watching, this will be Starliner's 33rd orbit of the Earth that this return is happening on.
"30 seconds to go now until the deorbit burn begins. Again, it'll last about 55 seconds in all.
Ten seconds to deorbit burn. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Deorbit burn in progress. Good control reported. 4 OMAC thrusters firing for about 55 seconds to slow Starliner down to begin its return to Earth.
All looking good thus far.
I think this is the live tracking of it.
40 seconds in, about 15 more to go.
Yes, it is, Terry.
Starliner, we can see, is
maintaining
its attitude.
It'd blow my ears out,
OMAC
Peter.
thrusters are firing. Smaller RCS thrusters
What'd
are
you do?
keeping the spacecraft in its position.
You fixed your mic.
Oh, maybe.
You're loud then. You nearly
Good
blew
burn
my ears out.
reported. Engines cut off. We are on our way to White Sands. Richard Jones tells his team.
Starliner's ready to come home now. Next up, as we were just talking about, is the entry interface. That'll be coming up in about 16 minutes. But before that, Starliner does want to get rid of the service module so that
I don't know if I can do this
the crew module can make its way home on its own. That clears the way for that heat shield and eventually the parachutes that will lower Starliner down slowly to Earth.
So Starliner is on a path coming home now. Its speed is dropping, and we will soon be jettisoning the service module as noted, but we are definitely on the way home to White Sands.
Moving into attitude to get rid of the service module now.
And flight controllers report that we are in the right attitude and service module has jettisoned. Crew module is flying on its own. Service module will be disposed of while it re-enters over the Pacific. While the crew module continues on a flight path to White Sands, New Mexico, where our Boeing and NASA teams are waiting to recover.
Right now it's up to the reaction control system on the crew module to flip the crew module back around, get its heat shield pointing into what will soon become a very hot spot. Make sure it's ready for re-entry.
At Starliner Mission Control in Houston, we continue to monitor the progress of Starliner as it flies back to White Sands, New Mexico. All systems are looking just like they're supposed to. Everything is looking good.
This speed
Crew module is positioning itself for the re-entry.
7.75. Would that be
entry interface coming up in 13 minutes 40 seconds?
7.75 kilometers a second or 7.75?
Yeah, it's 7.75 kilometers a second, Terry.
Wow.
Just like the ISS.
When you zoom in on it like this, where is it? There it is. There we go. That's how we can get it to go faster. Yeah, that's showing its speed relative to the ground. Makes it look faster when you zoom in. Oh, it's going pretty fast.
Yep.
But scale, bring it out. Got a bit slower now. Did you see it go over New Zealand? You missed it.
I had to look for it outside. That's where I went, but it's too far away.
And another Starliner engineer joining us this morning.
Where's its height? It says it does say the altitude here, 254.
You might remember from our launch coverage a couple days ago.
But cloudy.
Tori is an expert on the heat shield of Starliner and many of the other systems. Tori, what are you thinking? What are you thinking right now as we proceed towards this re-entry?
Well, it looks like the sun's coming up along there somewhere with the light colour.
Heading over the Pacific on the way to White Sands.
That's meant to show daylight on that side of the
Steve.
line.
This is a really exciting morning, right, for Starliner to be able to show not only a good SM separation, but also a good attitude coming down into White Sands. So this is just a really good place to be in for the vehicle.
Terminator line.
It's going to be upcoming here soon. Then we're going to get to test the heat shield. We have tested that heat shield
it's
here.
It's 1:30 here in New Zealand, so that makes sense.
Yeah, it is. You can actually see the terminal line moving.
which is really cool. And
that's
as
cool,
close as we
that
can
is.
get to those really hot atmospheric temperatures on Earth, but there's nothing like a flight test to prove the safety and reliability of something as important as the heat shield.
It's actually dropping about 100 meters a second at the moment, Terry.
From beginning to experience entry interface, it's really coming down to the crunch time.
Yeah, it is. And
I've got the more accurate
really exciting, and it's going to be a really
data
good
on my
test
screen at the
of
moment.
that heat shield. Now, a good thing to remember about the heat shield is that it's a game of threes. So the heat shield is going to see about 3,000 degrees at entry interface, and it's going to convert that heat to about 300 degrees on the
only those
interior of that
I have to screenshot it because it's on my phone.
Yeah, I know, that's what I was doing.
So it's a really great technology that Boeing has
So
developed, the Boeing lightweight ablator that we have on the vehicle.
So it's travelled that
it's
far since
really
then.
exciting to be able to test it here. And also, we have seen some successful parts of this test already. During pad abort, we saw a very successful base heat shield jettison, which happens at about 3,000 feet. So some parts of this we've already seen, but right now we're just really looking to see how the ablator performs during the
I'll have to learn all these terminologies later
Hopefully
on
it'll all
with
go just
azimuth
as
and all that.
expected. Assuming that we're
I'm going to
back,
have to do a bit of
expecting we're back next time
stream
with crew
about
on
these,
board,
some of these terminologies.
what would they be feeling at this point?
So at this point, from a thermal perspective, they would not be feeling anything different than what they would feel during the rest of the
There you go, Terry.
trip.
Another screenshot for you. But, if you scroll, if you go down to the bottom of the screenshot,
it's all in the exterior of the vehicle that they would.
You can see
those really high heat waves,
the data,
heat loads. They would be seeing a very cool light show outside of their window right now as some of that thermal effects start to take place, and you start to see the aero heating sphere occur around the vehicle.
And Tori, the heat shield for Starliner, of course, you have the base heat shield, which is the main thing that we're talking about, but the whole vehicle has a thermal protection. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. So the quilted look.
Got apogee,
blanket that is on the top of Starliner that has that gray color is actually a type of thermal protection system, a TPS. So that is a thermal blanket made out of a bunch of different layers and thicknesses of a quilted material that is actually sewn together and then epoxied onto the outside of Starliner. And while that part of the vehicle will not see the high heat that the base heat shield will, that gray color and the density of that TPS still protects the vehicle,
I get
not only from
latitude,
the high
longitude,
heat of re-entry,
altitude,
but also from the really cold temperatures when we're on orbit. So both of those are important when we think about thermal protection systems.
Outstanding point, Tori.
At
Starliner Mission Control, we are 8 minutes 50 seconds away from entry interface,
That's all I get on this one.
Point at which Starliner starts to encounter the hottest parts of re-entry. Starliner is in its current is in the proper attitude currently. Its base heat shield pointed in its direction of travel. Tori, entry interface. It's something you've been looking at for a long time, and now we're coming up to it.
Yes, so when we did analysis on the heat shield and when we were designing and, testing it, entry interface is really when we would start caring about the thermal loads the heat shield would see. Before that, the heat shield is protected by the SM because we don't want it to be affected by any micrometeor debris or anything like that. So having the SM cover the heat shield is really important until we're ready to use it, because we want it to be at the exact thickness that we analyze to, so it's able to perform its job to the best of its ability.
Can you give us an idea of how precisely that analysis goes?
Yes, so each area of the heat shield is actually lofted. So if you look at the heat shield as, as a layer of like a grid, each point on that grid is at a different thickness to be able to cover all of the heating that we would see during multiple different re-entry trajectories, but also able to have it as thin as possible to be as lightweight as possible. So we really worked to make the heat shield the most efficient it could be, while also being as the lightweight as it could be, so that we're able to carry more cargo or more crew to station when we eventually go there.
Well, how long after entry interface would you say that the heat shield has kind of done its job? When will you sigh with relief?
So when we release the drogue parachutes, at that point, the heat shield has taken the brunt of the heat forces, and by the time that we're ready to release those drogues, the heat shield has done almost all of its work. We performed analysis all the way up until the heat shield will actually drop at about 3,000 feet, but once we start releasing those parachutes, I'm going to have a big old sigh of relief. Now, when the vehicle comes back, and if we get any shots of that, the ablator is going to look black. It's going to be charred. It's going to have that sort of crusty looking appearance. And that is exactly what we expect, because how an ablator works is it transfers heat into gas. And by doing that, it chars the material. So when the material is, when it's new and when it hasn't seen any heat yet, it's white. But if we see it's black as it's coming back, that means that it actually worked, and we've transferred that heat into gas.
And Tori, you're of course an expert on another Starliner system, the interior camera system. And we of course have had a lot of interest on that, but as we understand it, we think we'll be able to have those interior views of Rosie in the commander's seat throughout from this mission.
Yes, that's correct, Steve. So the interior system for the camera, for OFT, it's recorded, it was supposed to record the entire flight. We definitely got all of the uphill. And then when we got into our orbit and we were stationary, we did have to do some powering down. So the camera system was powered down for a short amount of time, but then it came back on, and we powered it back on as we started to do re-entry. So we'll be able to see Rosie and Snoopy, not only on the uphill ride and as we orbit a little bit, but also during this re-entry. So that's going to be really valuable engineering data for the teams to be able to see how Rosie is affected, as well as using her sensor data. But also, it's going to be great to be able to show the American public what sort of ride they expect. We have 4 cameras in the vehicle, and one of those is actually pointed out the window. So you're going to see some really cool, hopefully, views of the Earth, and then, you know, that heat that we expect around the heat shield during re-entry. So excited to get that off the vehicle when it gets home.
It's an exciting time. We did have a Starliner performance deorbit burn at 6:23 a.m. Central today, putting it on its journey back towards a landing in New Mexico, just 20 minutes away from now. We'll be coming up on that entry interface that we've been talking about in about 4.5 minutes, but we'll keep talking with Tori for a little longer.
So Tori, speaking of the camera system, it's of course made for the crew that's going to be flying this same vehicle after PCM, and of course before that there'll be the crewed flight test mission with Boeing astronaut Chris Ferguson and NASA astronauts Nicole Mann and Mike Fink. What are some of the models that you followed before for really what the crew wants to show, what's important to them to be seen?
So we designed this camera system extensively working with Chris Ferguson and making sure that he was comfortable with the views and also with how close and up close and personal we would be inside the crew cabin. So that sort of data that we're going to be able to get from 4 different camera views on the interior of the Starliner is going to be really valuable to training astronauts in how to use our systems down the road, and also to sharing the Starliner story with the public. Now, for CFT, we're going to have some enhanced capability. We're going to be able to show docking live through the ISS. You'll be able to see the hatch opening ceremony and the crew greeting the ISS crew for CFT. So that sort of moments of being able to capture is not only important for the crew, you know, to be able to understand how the systems work and to be able to train others past them, but also to just be able to share the story and show everyone, you know, that we've had a successful docking.
Thank you, Tori. We are less than 3 minutes away from Starliner's entry interface with the atmosphere, 2 minutes 43 seconds. This puts us at 18 minutes 31 seconds from landing at White Sands, New Mexico.
We're already beginning to see the altitude drop for Starliner really steadily, about 95 miles above the Earth right now, and quickly falling.
Goes down to 250.
Flight Director Richard Jones and his team of mission controllers are monitoring every moment of this.
Speed hasn't changed.
Currently, Starliner reports 147,000 feet. moving under the Mach 25 orbital velocity.
It says it's gaining in
Currently
altitude. It went up
24.6 Mach.
from 250 to 251.
There's another link in there for you, Terry.
Okay. Got minus 42.32 degrees. I don't know how the elevation, how that works. Minus 26, minus 42. Okay. Velocities. Now, velocities are the same.
And at Starliner Mission Control in Houston, we are 40 seconds. We are 40 seconds away from entry interface, now 34 seconds. Starliner continues in the proper attitude. Altitude 127,000 feet. 127,000 meters. Apologies. 126,000 meters.
And we are right on top of that entry interface. This is when Starliner would be seeing those 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures. Should be just about 75 miles above the Earth at this point. We did want to make sure, as people are tuning in, that they are aware that following Starliner's touchdown, we will be hosting a post-landing news conference here on NASA TV at 9 a.m. Central Time. That's going to feature Jim Bridenstine, the NASA administrator, Jim Chilton from Boeing, and Steve Stitch from our commercial crew program.
That's good. That's giving me a different reading. I got 251. You got 250. No, I haven't seen Dory for a while, Sec. So like Finding Nemo, we're going to find Dory. Hey, Flurpies. Trademark Flurpies.
And Starliner is a minute into entry interface, into that phase of maximum heating during this re-entry.
Oh, that's a shame.
Back over
Phil.
the Pacific.
That's not good. Hope you didn't
Starliner
catch a
is
bug
flying as a
on the
crew
plane.
module alone. The service module has been jettisoned.
I hope he hasn't got flurpies.
Disposed of.
Yeah, as long as you haven't got Flurpies, Phil.
Altitude 104,000 meters.
The entire team here in the room is quietly watching, making sure all the systems continue to look good. We've also got a number of VIPs in the viewing room as well. We've got NASA's Administrator Jim Bridenstine, as well as Boeing's Jim Chilton, and the Boeing Defense and Space CEO Leanne Carrot as well.
And we are seeing now on the landing track here in Mission Control as Starliner moves over the Pacific. Starliner is 13 minutes 27 seconds from landing at White Sands Space Harbor, New Mexico. Starliner is entering the expected blackout region when the plasma forms over the spacecraft and the antennas cannot adequately communicate with the overhead satellites.
Currently 51 miles above the Earth, still heading in, making its way through that entry interface, about 3 minutes into it at this point. The next milestone we'll be looking for is the forward heat shield jettison. That should be coming up in less than 10 minutes now.
Controllers report good attitude, good roll to the to position it needs to be in. Starliner at 75,000 meters.
You probably start zooming in, Terry.
Just going over the Tropic of Cancer now. Coming in on the Gulf of California, I think it is.
Starliner moving through Earth's atmosphere, going through the entry phase. 11 minutes, 30 seconds to landing at White Sands, where a team of specialists are waiting to recover the vehicle. This vehicle will be reused after this mission. It'll be taken to the Starliner factory in Florida and refurbished, and then flown on the first operational It'll be flown, slated for the first operational mission.
Anyone watching the actual live feed from NASA?
I can if you want me to.
Carter's got it on, but it's just the control centre.
Yeah, that's all I need to know.
5 minutes.
That's all I was asking.
5 minutes into entry interface, we are now 10 minutes, 34 seconds before landing at White Sands, New Mexico. Starliner's controllers report the spacecraft is in good attitude.
I'll tell you if it changes screens or anything, Terry.
Yeah, that was what I was implying.
About 5 minutes away from when we expect that forward heat shield jettison. The first of the heat shields that will be jettisoned.
Hey, Andre Huddle.
We've got 10 minutes until landing, and the Starliner will be heading in the next few minutes over the Baja Peninsula, part of Mexico, and then into New Mexico and the White Sands Space Harbor.
And we have confirmation that the on-site vehicle at White Sands, the tracking vehicle, is tracking Starliner right now. Systems are looking good. Nine minutes, 30 seconds.
Going over Neuro Casca Grandes. We need an American in here to pronounce all these names. Coming up to El Paso. Looks like it's going to go over a border.
And Fido reports that Starliner is on track, continuing its descent to White Sands, New Mexico, altitude 51,000 meters.
Dory.
That's about 32 miles above Mexico.
You got a different name. Did you change your name or your account and you got a different name used? Roswell. Look out, the aliens will get it. They might think it's a flying saucer.
Getting our first views.
We are getting our first views from the
just come up, Terry.
WB-57. We see
bring up the NASA side.
We see their Starliner continuing its plunge through the atmosphere. We are 8 minutes and 8 seconds from landing. That image is infrared because of it being dark, of course, over the skies of New Mexico right now.
Still about 28 miles above the Earth as it continues making its way, just about crossing over the New Mexico border now. This video again coming from one of NASA's WB-57 planes using infrared camera.
All systems are reported doing well. Spacecraft is doing well. Altitude 41,000 meters.
7.5 minutes to landing, and just a couple minutes now until we should hear about the forward heat shield jettison.
Bog says go, NASA.
41,000 meters. That's tall.
41,000 meters, isn't that how tall a plane flies at, or is that 41,000 feet?
Feet.
Great view here. Can't see much since
Terry,
it's dark, but it's
YouTube can't see what we're seeing.
Don't know why I got YouTube
a little better than I was
they
hoping,
can.
considering
Stop.
that it's in the middle of the night in New Mexico.
It's all right. Just took a long time to change
Just
over.
a delay.
Very good to see this. Very good.
Very
to see
long
this. Everything
delay.
is looking. That image is exactly what we expect. The thermal protection system on Starliner, of course, protecting the spacecraft from the heat of entry. Slowing speed down now, Mach 3.5. Of course, the orbital velocity is Mach 25, so that gives you an idea of the velocity change.
Now 17 miles above New Mexico.
Six minutes to landing at White Sands, New Mexico. Starliner remains in its proper attitude, proper course.
We've got the right satellite?
Speed Mach 1.1, 19,000
Nearly in
meters.
Iowa. I thought it was going to land in New Mexico. I might have the wrong satellite. Yeah, Kansas. Yeah. I thought it was landing somewhere back in New Mexico.
Put it on the NASA then, Terry.
That's NASA.
Oh, it's got some information there.
Landing recovery team has visual on Starliner as it comes down. $10,000 feet.
It's about 6.2 miles still above New Mexico, but we did just
Forward heat shield deploy.
Confirmation of that forward heat shield deploy. Everything.
Drogues out.
Whoa.
Things will happen fast now. The drogues will start stabilizing the Starliner and slowing it down before the main heat shields deploy after it. Main parachutes, rather, not heat shield.
Vehicle is slowing rapidly.
Ooh.
Mach 0.2. And landing site reports the sonic booms as Starliner came over. And we can see on that image the two pilot chutes, the two drogue chutes. Three minutes, 30 seconds from landing.
Looks
Mains
like it's slowing
deployed.
down.
And we see three main chutes. Billowing up, we have three main chutes. We see the red, white, and blue as Starliner descends. 2 minutes, 53 seconds from touchdown. And the rotation handle has deployed. That will level Starliner as it descends. Base heat shield has jettisoned. That is the base heat shield falling away as planned. Airbags are inflating.
And that is the last of the milestones. So now all that's left is for Starliner to float down to the surface of the desert in New Mexico. Everything continuing to look good on this camera that we're getting from the WB-57 cameras, infrared cameras, giving us as good a view as we could expect at nighttime.
Whoa. 2 minutes, 12 seconds to landing. Starliner descending under 3 good main chutes.
So quiet you could hear
All
a pin
6
drop.
airbags are confirmed to have deployed, and they are fully inflated as Starliner descends to the desert down in White Sands.
Just about 800 meters left to go.
Pretty
It's
incredible
less than half
cameras.
a mile.
Serious infrared.
Great imagery.
The camera's so good it's not even shaking.
Be a bit of money in that camera.
Well, so that's still a few kilometres, Dory.
They should give an update. They said 3 minutes.
Less than 1 minute to landing, less than 1 minute to touchdown.
Like 9 meters per second or
floating
something?
smoothly and softly under 3 main parachutes.
No, parachutes to slow it down, so it's not going that fast.
Yeah. And
they said about 20 mile an hour or something, or 20 kilometers an hour or something.
Yeah, that's what they said. I want it to touch down like.
Just 300 meters left to go. That's 984 feet.
There you go.
Very
300
close
meters.
20 seconds. 20 seconds to landing the first Starliner flight test vehicle.
And land on the cross. Mav 64 says land on the X marks the spot. Is it going to land over the other side of the mountain? No, this side.
Beautiful.
You missing it, Peter?
The net booted me.
There it is.
There it goes.
There we are.
Starliner touches down in the desert in New Mexico. An historic landing in White Sands, New Mexico concludes the first flight test of Boeing's Starliner spacecraft. The first time an American-made, human-rated capsule has landed on land.
That took place right at 6:58 a.m. Central Time, 2 days, 1 hour, and 21 minutes into Starliner's mission. Congratulations, Starliner.
Perfect
Congratulations,
landing.
indeed.
Yeah.
Flawless flight
now the
back
truck
to
should
Earth.
Be driving out there now.
Good landing this morning. Now the spotlight's going to shift a little bit to the landing recovery team waiting for it out there in New Mexico. They have to wait for clearance before they start heading over to the vehicle, but Starliner has touched down at White Sands successfully this morning. Main chutes are jettisoned.
That'll keep those chutes from pulling Starliner away as the landing recovery team is looking to make their way toward it. Once again, today's landing time was 6:58 a.m. Central Time or 5:58 a.m. Mountain Time local for Starliner. That again was 2 days, 1 hour, and 21 minutes into Starliner's historic orbital flight test.
And Starliner systems have switched to ground mode.
Right
now, that means the vehicle is taking the steps it needs. Mission Control remains in command of the vehicle. We will soon see the landing recovery team head out.
We are seeing him.
And we're going now to Boeing's Josh Barrett out with the landing recovery team. Josh, it was a beautiful landing from here. I can only imagine how it is from there.
Steve, it was a beautiful landing from here. We had a spotlight on the ground. We could actually see some of those ordnance fires up in the upper atmosphere when that forward heat shield was deploying. We could see the strobing light on the vehicle all the way down, and then when those parachutes deployed in the spotlight, it looked almost ghostly as it drifted down and touched down at 5:58 here. As you can see, we are moving in the convoy right now. We've got our H2, which is actually the connection that I'm talking to you guys back from right now, right in front of us. Our recovery operations leader, we call him Roll. He's in contact with the recovery operations coordinator. That's rock and roll for you. They are leading us out to the crew module. I can actually see it strobing out in the distance on the horizon. We have the GPS coordinates locked in. That strobe is still going on, so we're just going to follow that all the way into the crew module. And then once again, Gold Team will be the first to approach the vehicle. We heard the radio call that there's no hazardous conditions for the LRT. That's the landing and recovery team. But we still want to make sure that everything is safe before the teams get around the vehicle. So again, Gold Team is going to approach the vehicle, sniff out, make sure there's no residual hydrazine on the outside or there's no propellant leaks. Silver Team is going to go in and discharge the vehicle, and then Green Team is going to go in and start getting that environmental closure around the vehicle and get some ground heating to it because it's so cold. We want to make sure those propellant lines don't freeze. And then the red team moves in, gets access to the hatch, and then I think we'll probably wrap up this broadcast right around hatch closer. When there's crew members in there, obviously we'll stick around until everybody's out, but you know, today getting that hatch open and getting access to the interior is really the final big milestone for the landing and recovery team. You know, over to our east, we're starting to see the sun come up, so hopefully we'll have a little better lighting for you as we get into these operations, but you know, just a great feeling out here, hearing crew module touchdown on the radios just gave everyone here chills. There's a lot of cheers. Very happy team, and they're ready to rock. So back to you guys, Steve.
Thank you, Josh. So great to hear that. Richard Jones, flight director here at Mission Control, said that looks like it's going to be a smooth ride for CFT, judging by how softly and smoothly this OFT vehicle, this orbital flight test vehicle, came down this morning.
I'm sure the astronauts on their way to see it will get their assessments as well. Hopefully, be just as enthusiastic as that. I know they're excited to be there. Just a reminder, we've got a lot of work
left
left
TV
for this
screen
team
from
here
your live
in
streams,
the
Peter?
room, but in just a little while we will be going to a post-landing.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
That's going to be at 9 a.m. Central Time.
Great for the man shed.
To follow along
I
with
think I'd need
Starliner
a bigger
activities
shed.
on the ground. But we will be hearing from Jim Bridenstine, Jim Chilton, and Steve Stitch at that time. Again, 9 a.m. Central.
And also the landing team there in New Mexico, there in White Sands, reports that, quote, we hit the bullseye. So Starliner came down exactly where it was supposed to, right at White Sands, right where it needed to be. It was a spectacular entry this morning, and of course, remarkable images coming down as it.
So, the reason before, Terry, why your app was saying that it was
our first look.
It had gone out of place in comparison to where it was actually meant to land was because remember how they were saying that the antenna array was going to lose signal soon to the satellites?
Right.
So what happened, it stopped sending telemetry data to the satellites. So the app that you were using could no longer get updated. So it just continued to think that it was traveling at the same speed.
Yeah, that's what I was noticing, yeah.
Yeah, so it didn't lose any of its speed as per the app because it wasn't getting the telemetry anymore.
All right.
Jim and Tori, it looked great from here. New Mexico reports it looked good. I can only imagine the feelings that y'all have experienced this morning.
Thanks, Steve. It has been an absolutely amazing morning. Really trying just to keep it together and not cry on live TV, but it is a fulfillment of 7.5 years of work to see this happen and happen so successfully and make it look so easy. So this is just an absolutely great morning for me.
I feel the same way. We've been training. It's not just us as engineers, but we've put a lot of work into training all of the flight crew and the mission controllers as well. So being able to get them ready for this flight and have them control the vehicle, command the vehicle to come down safely in the desert, means good things looking forward for our future crew missions as well.
And Jim, it's such a great synergy between not only the technical systems, right, but also our people systems. We had such great people on console, we've had such great people out in the desert, and then we also have a really great technical vehicle. So like seeing all of these things happen together is because of the team that really made this happen. So it's just excellent to see.
Exactly, the team effort's great.
And for those just joining us, about 8 minutes ago, Starliner touched down on the sands of White Sands, New Mexico at 6:58 a.m. Central Time, 5:58 a.m. local Mountain Time out at White Sands.
Seeing a replay here of that touchdown. Again, everything happened right on time. All the milestones, the heat shield jettisons, the parachutes, deployment, the airbags filling up, everything giving good indications for all of the landing system elements.
A lot of activities, of course, took place. The spacecraft in control of them during that final descent. Tori and Jim, a lot of things for the spacecraft to do, but it went really, really well. It looked like. From your technical knowledge, what do you think?
So I just have to say that heat shield jettison was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. It looked really good from this end. I'm really excited to see some of the more up close images that I'm sure we're going to get from the ground team, and also be able to really dig into the data from the vehicle now that it's back here on Earth. I don't think we could have had a better flight.
Yeah, and the vehicle, we simulate this reentry, especially with the actual flight crews and the mission controllers for the uncrewed flight. But seeing the vehicle nail the bullseye, all of the separation and ordnance events happening exactly when they plan to, means that we've done a really good job of modeling and planning for our flight with our simulations, the way that we train everybody. So seeing that work just as we planned means that we've got a good background moving forward into our future flights.
And just a reminder that here we are about 10 minutes after landing. And the Starliner landing recovery team is making their way out to the spacecraft. We will hear more from Josh Barrett and NASA's Dan Hewitt as they get closer to the spacecraft, coming a little bit later. We are talking right now with Boeing's Tori Wills-Pedrati and Jim May, both engineers in the Starliner systems. You're also seeing some of the replays of Starliner's very successful, very smooth landing this morning in New Mexico. Jim, you have you've both, of course, been working throughout the last couple of days. When did you first breathe your sigh of relief as you watched it come down this morning?
I don't think I really let myself start deeply breathing until we hit the landing. When the mains came out, the mains were coming down slowly, but you really want to make sure that the vehicle comes down soft and safely, because that means soft and safe for the crew. And so once it hit the ground, I let out a deep sigh, but a happy one.
I mean, this is also just a big moment, right? Because we landed an American capsule on land with an airbag system. It's like the first time anybody has done this. So this is just really exciting to be a part of this.
Right, and us coming down safely on land means that we're going to have the vehicle safe and ready for Sunny Williams to fly on her next mission. That means that we can safely bring back the cargo that we're planning on bringing back from station on the future flights, so we can get the research continuing, immediately after landing.
We're hearing that Richard Jones here in the flight control team has handed authority of the vehicle over to the landing and recovery team. For Tori and Jim, I know that you would probably love to be there. What would you be looking for if you were able to be on site?
So I would probably be in an ATV trying to go pick up my heat shield from somewhere off in the desert. Now it's going to be really important that we pick up parts of the pieces that we jettison, because that's how we're going to base our models going forward, right? We've done a lot of analysis on this vehicle, but it's getting that data and seeing those systems now that we've actually gone through reentry, which is really going to put us in a great place for when crew gets on the vehicle.
And I've been working on the training systems and the simulations that we use to train everybody. So specifically, I'm looking to get some of the flight data recorder data and the data that Rosie, the Rocketeer, has, so we can take what we've learned from exactly how the vehicle flied and turn that back into a
park right in front of it.
For the future.
And speaking of Rosie, the Rocketeer, we were expecting before this that Starliner would be coming down about the speed of an express elevator and a skyscraper. Is that kind of realizing that you're not in the control room? But I mean, is that kind of the way it looked to you? That's the way it seemed to be.
Yes, the landing looked exactly like we had in the simulations. So everything looked great. Nice soft landing for Rosie.
Can't wait to see that data, I'm sure. Looks like we're starting to get some clearer pictures out at the landing site as the teams move in. Again, we've
they're going to park right in front of it.
New Mexico about 13 minutes ago, 6:58 a.m. Central. For those,
well, they park in front of it and put all their headlights on it so we can all see it.
We still got a little bit to show you.
And one of their first tasks will be to put an environmental enclosure around Starliner. We can see the images there. That's the infrared views of the landing recovery team convoy of vehicles heading out to meet Starliner.
Oh, heat shield was jettisoned, yeah. He's somewhere out in the desert.
And a quick reminder that we will be going out, we hope to be going out to Boeing's Josh Barrett shortly with the landing recovery team. He's in that convoy of vehicles. He is part of the blue team, as they're known. They're divided into different teams of specialists depending on their tasks for Starliner recovery.
Peter, you changed your avatar.
Yes, I did. In preparation for next week.
And I just thought I'd be funny with mine.
Yeah, and I've been watching yours too.
15 minutes after the landing of Starliner out in White Sands, New Mexico, Starliner landed after 33 orbits of the Earth.
During that time, it was able to check off a number of mission objectives, although it didn't quite make it to the International Space Station. It was able to prove out some of the not only the launch on the Atlas V rocket, and of course all the landing systems that we saw in action today, but a number of
Red
the
Team didn't
systems
survive.
that would be useful during future rendezvous.
They never do.
Yeah.
A number of the navigation system demonstrations were accomplished. Mission controllers, of course, executed their operations, all while keeping an eye on Starliner.
And Starliner, in fact, was able to connect with the International Space Station, though it didn't visit, and teams here on the ground were able to send commands from the station to Starliner. Once again, a reminder that coming up in about an hour and 45 minutes, that we're aiming for 9 a.m. Central Time, we will have that post-landing briefing when we expect to hear from Jim Bridenstine, Jim Chilton, and Steve Stitch.
Don't all talk at once.
Mission Control Houston, we've got a number of special guests coming in to say hi who have been watching from the viewing room, including NASA Administrator
That's what the video's
Jim
for.
Bridenstine, Johnson Space Center Director Mark Geyer. We're starting at high fives here. Lots of excitement and smiles.
And this all follows a lot of work by a lot of.
I'll be going back out to the team that's out on the field. So once we get that,
yeah, quite right.
Also joining
Juice saying, can they not point the headlights towards us so we can let
Jim
see it?
Yeah, that's what they should do. I said that, Stewie.
Leanne Corrett and Jim Chilton. They are both congratulating the Mission Control team here in Houston for the work that went into this morning.
And we did mention earlier that the team here in Mission Control handed authority already over to the landing and recovery team on site with Starliner, so they're able to relax a little bit and start some of the celebrations.
And we also have a report from the landing team, quote, "The vehicle looks fantastic."
We hope to hear more from them coming up soon. We're standing by to get some more updates from Josh Barrett and Dan Hewitt on site there.
And as you can see from the screen, NASA's Jim Bridenstine and Johnson Space Center Director Mark Geyer, joined by Boeing Space and Launch Senior Vice President Jim Chilton and Leanne Corrett, who is the President and CEO of Boeing Defense and Space.
Both Bridenstine and Chilton will be joining us again for that post-landing news conference that's coming up at 9 a.m. Central Time, and they'll also be joined by Steve
Stewie
Stitch,
said, no, I didn't hear that. I had the guitar going.
The commercial crew program for NASA.
That woman's got a coat on, she's off.
So
yeah, we can go home now.
Probably tell there's a lot of happy faces this morning in Houston. There we see Leanne with Flight Director Richard Jones and Mike Lammers and Bob Dempsey.
More team members continuing to pile into the room. I don't think the congrats are going to stop anytime soon. It's been 20 minutes now since Starliner landed in New Mexico. That took place again at 6:58 a.m. Central Time, or 5:58 a.m. Mountain there in New Mexico.
And took place at 7:58 Eastern Time.
What snacks?
At the launch site.
Tinox, tea cakes, caramel wafer.
Oh, caramel wafers. Darkman, you are my... Yeah. Perfect snack. Any time of the day or night. But I don't know why I haven't got any Tinox tea cakes.
Once again, we've got a number of VIPs piling into the room. Some of them that you might recognize.
What Dartman's following you, Roger? Were you following Dartman, Roger?
Jim Morehard and Jim Chilton, a number of Jims in the room today. Chilton's Senior Vice President of Space and Launch for Boeing. Also, Leanne Corrett, the Boeing Defense and Space CEO.
Come on, switch to the camera feed that's on the ground.
We've got, I think, all of
you can see it on the big screen.
All of the Starliner flight directors, I believe, in here. Richard Jones, of course, who was on console.
We're not worried about the people.
And the launch, as well as Mike Lammers, who was next to him as the weather flight director. Also milling around Ed Van Cise and Bob Dempsey, all taking part in the congrats.
Meanwhile, out at White Sands, New Mexico, the landing recovery team is getting closer to the Starliner vehicle. They will be putting an environmental enclosure up over the vehicle. It is, of course, below freezing out in White Sands this morning.
I've been chatting away for ages and muted.
Yeah,
Dan and Alan.
Yeah, you got to. When you got an
That's what happened. Herpes.
No, Pip had an open mic when she wasn't talking.
Ah, okay. My husband's singing Christmas songs in the bedroom. And the parrot's singing now too.
Tell
and
him
we are
the parrot
seeing
sounds
some
better.
imagery, some regular imagery coming from White Sands, New Mexico here in the control room.
You're not wrong, Terry.
The team, of course, brings a lot of lights with them.
Put the bloody lights on so we can see.
And we are hoping to reconnect with the blue team, part of the landing recovery team.
What casual's finished?
We're just waiting for the communications link to be completed. Starliner is in very good shape, landed 23, almost 24 minutes ago.
Tell Casual I'm
White
still
Sands,
going
New
over
Mexico.
here.
Doorknob head. Where does hubby in the bedroom have the mistletoe hanging? That would be telling.
Tell Casual on his stream that we're still going. Come on, we can see it on the big screen. Put it on for us to see.
And we also have a report from
terrible bloody producers.
We have a report from the landing zone confirming that all the parachutes detached after landing to prevent the parachutes from pulling the vehicle over in high winds. The vehicle is looking good, is also the report, and the landing went very smoothly today. I think the team will be very pleased with the way today's deorbit and landing went.
I want to sneak in another reminder of our upcoming post-landing news conference. That'll be at 9 a.m. Central Time. That's what we're targeting. Media who are interested in taking part in the news conference can call the Johnson Space Center newsroom. That number is 281-483-5111.
Hello?
Again, call the Johnson Space Center newsroom to take part for media to take part in that news conference coming up at 9 a.m. Central Time. Again, it'll feature Jim Bridenstine, Jim Chilton, and Steve Stitch. And we are now getting some new views from the landing side. Great view of Starliner there.
You can see the detail of the side hatch, the colors outlining the different parts of the spacecraft.
Aliens.
Yeah, open the hatch up and an alien pops out.
It looks weird.
And what we're seeing is the first members of the landing recovery team moving out to the vehicle. They are just making sure that the atmosphere, that the environment is safe around Starliner. Starliner, of course, comes back through the atmosphere with the maneuvering fuel. It jettisons quite a bit of it on the way down, but they do need to confirm before the whole teams get there that the environment is safe for the landing recovery team. You can also see in this the partially deflated airbags. They of course have vents on them to cushion, just like a car airbag, to cushion the touchdown impact.
It's supposed to come down at about 18 miles per hour, I think, right?
No, good night, non-sec.
Not nearly as fast as when it starts its journey, but you still like
not
a little cushion
non-sec.
All indications of the loads on landing are that it was extremely smooth. And again, Richard Jones, Flight Director Richard Jones, his comment was, looks like it's going to be a smooth landing when the CFT crew, when the astronauts of the crewed flight test make their flight into space.
The next crew that will be on board is out at the landing site. That's NASA's Mike Fink and Nicole Mann and Boeing's Chris Ferguson. They're all going to be getting that first look at Starliner here in just a moment as the teams are allowed to move in. We're hoping to hear a little bit from them as we're able to get Dan Hewitt and Josh Barrett up and running.
And one more note about the landing recovery team. Of course, we're going to stay focused on the capsule. There are other parts of the teams that go out and recover the base heat shield and the forward heat shield and the parachutes. The spacecraft itself will be taken over to Boeing Starliner factory in Florida and refurbished. The base heat shield does not get reused.
Oh, okay. Anybody want to buy a base heat shield used on eBay?
Be good for a barbecue, wouldn't it?
And this spacecraft will be used again. It can be reused up to 10 times. This vehicle, of course, comes down on land. We designed it to land on land just to get that reusable ability that you don't get when you splash down in the water.
Wonder why? Not waterproof.
Probably
This is very good for electronics.
Yes.
Landing teams continuing to
salt getting into all the aluminium and that as well.
So heat shield gets scrapped. Next time we see heat shield, we say you go into the scrap yard. Sorry, I can't give you any running commentary of what they're doing because I've got no idea what they're doing except securing the vehicle with the gas, with that word they said for what propellant or something was there.
So is that the airbags all around the bottom?
Yeah, that was the airbags were deployed, so let's make a soft landing.
Cool.
So when you look at the size of the capsule there,
it's quite wee, really, isn't it?
But you get an idea of how big the main heat shield would be. They'd have to be really careful on where that came off, wouldn't they? Imagine that hitting a house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from what I gather, it's released really late so that it's dropped over the main as well. Because remember, that White Sands missile range is huge.
Or is it in Texas? White Sands.
New Mexico.
New Mexico. Okay.
Near Area 51.
Oh, right. Ross Valley. Okay.
Yeah, it's really cold there because it's at quite a high altitude as well.
But the guy standing, it really is quite small, isn't it? How many get in it? 3?
No, I think there's more than 3 can get in it.
Mm.
No, it looks like it's quite roomy. I think it's quite roomy in there. They have showed a shot of the inside of it before.
I've seen the Crew Dragon one inside, but I don't think I've seen in that.
No, they didn't drop it in the ocean, Stewie. It's probably just a few kilometres away from where this landed.
7 says doorknob head. Wow.
Roger said Area 51 is here in Nevada. I don't know the geography, Rabbit.
Well, Roswell's New Mexico, isn't it?
Yeah, Roswell's New Mexico.
Yeah.
Which is kind of south of it's south of Nevada.
Yeah, so it wasn't far off. Or maybe the heat
Still
shield
looks like
landed.
might be a squish.
Maybe the heat shield landed in Area 51 then.
No, I think the heat shield landed in White Sands as well.
Yeah, you seen it popping off when it was coming down, didn't you?
Yes, yeah, so it shouldn't be very far away from where they are.
NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine just wrapping up some encouraging words to the team here in the room. He had a lot to say, starting with congratulations. He said the last 48 hours weren't easy, but the takeaway was a successful test flight.
And he pointed out that we've learned a lot from this. We've learned a lot about a lot of different aspects of flying it, of course.
How many new batteries for the clock?
And NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine told the room watching the landing was a thing of beauty today. He was very encouraged by what he saw. He reported that a lot of tasks were accomplished during this flight.
Missed
We learned
all that
a lot.
guitar
That's
again.
why you test.
Priority, Stewie.
And this was a challenge for the flight team because you had to do some of the flying in a non-optimum situation, but they still managed to do a lot of things right, and we learned a lot about this vehicle. This is the first of the space-proven models of the Starliner spacecraft. We have a crewed flight test version back in Florida that's being prepared for the crewed flight test to carry astronauts, and we have a pad abort test vehicle also. So the fleet now has a vehicle that has orbited the Earth 33 times and landed back.
Do we
in
know
New
when
Mexico.
they're expecting to send it back up again with
That's a
with
great
a crew?
start. Bridenstine also mentioned that he called Vice President Mike Pence from this room. And,
I don't think they've said
Pence
yet,
mentioned
Terry.
that he knows
No, they've
that we
mentioned
just
it
made
as
history
in that's
here,
what they're doing.
Kudos
but they
coming
haven't
in
mentioned. I
from
don't
all over
remember
the place
mentioning
at the
when they're
moment.
planning
We're
on
also
doing it.
able to get one of the first still photographs from our NASA, one of our NASA photographers in the field. We have to show for you here. This came from Aubrey Gimignani, one of our NASA photographers, taken of Starliner making its way down to its landing in New Mexico at 6:58 a.m. Central Time.
Isn't Crew Dragon
And
going
you
up
can
next
see there that
next year,
Starliner is
2020?
the small conical shape at the end of the 3 main parachutes. And
Channel
in fact,
chat,
this
Terry.
image came through of the base heat shield as it jettisoned. Of course,
Great
base
shot.
heat shield protecting it from the 3,000 degrees of re-entry. And then its work done, it jettisons and the airbags inflate.
just to give a bit of an idea.
Team here in the room is about to take a group photo, but before they did, Flight Director Richard Jones
chill,
gave
his
flight
chill.
controllers the go-ahead to consider themselves done with the mission and advise them to go home and relish it.
And indeed, all the mission controllers have been doing a lot of work during the
where's Area
duration
51
of this
from there?
mission.
It wasn't far from there. I've seen on that other map that I had. It had Area 51.
Still waiting for our counterparts there on the ground in White Sands to be able to get into position to give us another update. We're hoping that will come pretty soon. But in the meantime, I'm going to give you another reminder that we've got a post-landing
Area 51's in Nevada.
news conference coming up at 9 a.m. Central Time.
No, Roswell's where the alien spacecraft crashed.
Senior VP of Space and Launch, Jim Chilton, and also the Deputy Director of Commercial Crews, Steve Stitch. They'll all be giving us the final word on the mission, at least for now. Media who would like to participate can call the Johnson Space Center newsroom at 281-483-5111.
Area 51's to the left.
Targeted to begin at 9 a.m. Central.
And while we have Tori Wills-Pedrati and Jim May over in the studio, Tori and Jim, you're seeing now the visual light imagery coming in from White Sands. We see the landing recovery team, the first elements getting close to the vehicle, but you've seen the details of the hatch, the details of the upper structure. What are you thinking as you see this?
You know, the vehicle looks clean, meaning we had a great reentry profile, just like we planned. And, you know, you see the vehicle sitting there on its inner airbags cushioned off the ground, meaning we've got our analysis on the landing recovery system seems to be great. So the vehicle is in safe hands now on the ground.
And I have to say that I'm very impressed with the way that the heat shield performed, but also looking at this and looking at how we landed, I think it's going to be really great for Sunny's first ride here for PCM1. So that reusability of that capsule is critical for us, and that's great to see such a clean landing.
Sunny's crewmate Josh Cassidy stopped by our console here in Mission Control just a moment ago, just giving a thumbs up. He looks super excited and I think ready to get on board.
And we can see there members of the landing recovery team moving around the vehicle, doing their checks. We hope to hear from the blue team, who are right with that landing recovery convoy.
What's with the hazmat suits?
That the fuel they had for the landing burns might have still been present, so they had them on before. They were the first guys to come out onto it.
Yeah, because some don't have them on.
Yeah, the guys with the hazmats were the first ones to walk over to it and to secure the. Terry's notification
Mine
bell
just dead,
says
it's massive.
7. I almost pressed it on the video. Yeah, that's a new feature I put
and
into
at this
the
point, if you are
YouTube
just joining us,
thing doorknob, so I didn't know what it did.
Starliner orbital flight test ended with a flawless deorbit, entry, and landing in White Sands, New Mexico.
Where's the
Bye, Stu.
Where's the foreman out there telling us what's going on? Hey, Stewie.
I'm still looking for the bloke that's leaning on the shovel, Terry.
This point, we are seeing the Starliner spacecraft.
Yeah, don't have it too loud, Stewie. I won't be able to hear what's going on
White
here.
Sands, New Mexico. This is the first vehicle to land, the first American-made human-rated capsule, I should say, to land on land. Came down under 3 parachutes, touched down on 6 inflated airbags, very smooth landing.
There's a vehicle backing up.
Touchdown time was 6:58 Central Time here at Mission Control.
What's with the bloody flag? These Americans
and 7:58 Eastern Time.
I can't believe
where
that.
It launched from.
Just in case you forget.
We can see that they're moving the platform.
Everything's got to have the flag
on Starliner to get access.
I should talk, shouldn't I, with my avatar? Just trying to rub it in. Do they know what they're doing?
And we have Boeing's Josh Barrett at the landing site in White Sands. He is joining us by phone. We're going to stay on this image of Starliner out on the desert floor. Josh, how was it from your side?
Hey, Steve. It looks beautiful looking at Starliner with my own 2 eyes. We're working on getting some better video uplinks. We have our situational awareness camera up, but we're working on getting our closer handheld cameras up for you. Hopefully we can get that working for you soon, and so you can get some good up-close views. Right now, the Boeing fire rescue teams are moving the platform in front of the crew module. Green team is working on inflating the environmental enclosure. That's, if you can kind of see what's going on behind the crew module from the perspective of the situational awareness camera, they're inflating that in between that HVAC trailer there. So you'll see kind of that big inflatable enclosure kind of hug the vehicle, and they're going to start getting some heat on there again to make sure those propulsion lines don't freeze. Gold team has moved in and done their assessment.
Well, they're taking a while to do it.
Everything is healthy on the vehicle. Silver team has grounded the vehicle, and now they've moved on to recovering the
Dora, it's not quite as hilly though.
There's a beautiful
yeah.
orange
That's the Star Wars
to the east as the sun is coming up. Really a beautiful day here out in the desert. Although it is still pretty cold, but the teams are working hard. They're working through the cold. Next up, you should see the medical truck start to move into place beside that mobile access platform. That is just an exercise for today. That medical truck won't be used today. The crew is actually just getting out of the trucks in front of me here. You might see them start appearing in the SA camera in their pink vests. But really, just overall a great morning. This team is executing exactly what they have trained for over and over and over again. And hopefully we can get some better views as our camera guys move in a little closer. We're trying to reestablish a microwave link to our satellite feed. We think maybe on the drive out here, one of our connections might have got jostled out, but we want to get you some better views soon, but we're glad you're getting a look at Starliner on the ground. So I'll let you guys take it from here.
Thank you, Josh. This has been an exciting morning. Certainly one that we've not seen before, with an American human-rated capsule touching down on land.
I can't hear you.
We can see the environmental enclosure being put into place. They're going to put that over the Starliner vehicle, as Josh just mentioned, and that's going to clear the way to open the side hatch. The environmental enclosure, of course, protects the vehicle and its complex systems from the cold. Of course, Starliner has been through an extreme environment during this deorbit burn, having gone through 3,000 degrees of heat before coming down softly under 3 main parachutes and landing on 6 airbags in a flawless return to Earth.
The bloke's just standing around watching them
Steve,
do it.
while
What
we
they
wait
give
for
him
your
a
back
hand?
more from the landing team,
The
tell us
pop-up
about
tent.
how
Yeah.
Starliner gets back to Florida. What is that journey like?
Well, they'll move. They'll basically, after they get Starliner safe on the ground, they will put it on a truck inside a crate that'll control the environment around it, and then it's a simple drive from White Sands, New Mexico, to Cape Canaveral, Florida, to Kennedy Space Center.
Sure, that sounds simple.
Where the engineers will pour through it and ultimately refurbish it, and we're going to fly it again. We are not only using these capsules one time. Each of these capsules is designed for 10 times to go in space.
Look forward to seeing this one land on its 10th time then.
So I'm wondering, Terry,
like
is that environmental thing more to stop sand and stuff from getting inside? Because it's already gone through the, all of the heat and stuff, plus it's been in the cold of space. So
now the red team will continue
backing up doesn't make sense.
Platform. Right
Been sitting there for 20 minutes.
They'll extend a little bit of that.
Yeah, but they haven't opened the hatch yet.
The hatch, but we don't want to make contact with the vehicle and potentially.
Oh, well, I guess if there's people in it, yeah, that makes sense.
Because
there's nobody in it, Dory.
Vehicle will be reused. Thermal protection system
I know,
needs to be,
but when there's people in
maintain
it,
integrity. We will replace the forward heat shield and the base heat shield. Actually, the forward heat shield landed probably about 600 feet away from the capsule. I'm looking at it right now. It landed on its nose.
love how it's got a window in it as well.
Shield yet, but I'm sure it's around here somewhere. The crew, you can see that's the astronaut crew in their pink vests. Now, you might not have heard me talk about Pink Team. Pink Team is just kind of the observers. They don't have an operational role, but they are in brightly colored pink vests just to make sure they're visible, and the operational teams kind of avoid them. Or they avoid the operational team.
Okay, Roger, yeah.
Don't get in the way of the operation. But
so how far away is it from Florida?
They're just kind of adjusting it
a long way
right now to give red team to the hatch. There you see the mobile access platform backing ever so slowly. They're being very careful not to damage that thermal protection system.
Josh, have you had a chance to talk with any of the astronauts? Get any of their thoughts on watching the landing?
I have not. They got out of the car and walked straight up to the vehicle while we're trying to get this video link back up for you guys. But I will be sure to grab them as soon as I can.
Understandable if they want to hurry over.
Yeah, I know Josh is back in Houston watching, and Sunny's here, and I'm sure she's extremely pleased seeing her ride back on Earth safely, executing a pretty flawless landing. 2 drogues, 3 main parachutes, 6 airbags.
Jeremy Clarkson crash testing.
And Josh, how does this look compared to what we saw after the pad abort test?
So I was honestly expecting a little bit of a kind of thermal scorch marks almost on the vehicle, but it looks almost as good as the day it left the factory in Florida. It was, even all of the logos.
Jeremy Clarkson's not logos, Captain Slow.
The hash marks we have around the top where the forward heat shield meets the vehicle, those are all 100% perfectly intact. Now you can see the medical trucks starting to back up. So we actually custom designed those medical trucks. Those were surplus Army 5-ton trucks. And we kind of outfitted it with that platform you might be able to see on the back of the truck, and the interior was completely refitted to be a pretty state-of-the-art field medical facility. So once again, when the astronauts come out of the hatch, they're going straight into that medical truck just to make sure that they're healthy after spending an extended time in orbit. Once again, you see the red team establishing access to the hatch. Once they lower those stairs, Selena Dopart, one of our human factors engineers, will go up and actually open the hatch. She's actually, I can see her standing to the left of the platform with the hard hat on.
And Josh,
they're wearing a hard hat for. Nothing's going to fall on them.
About some of the practice stuff. This is what I'm getting at is just like
just in case a heat shield falls from the sky for some random reason.
Simulations. The landing
it already
team
has fallen.
Walked through this a number of times out in White Sands, correct?
Yeah, they have done it about 4 or 5 times as a full team, and that's 4 or 5 separate times when the whole, the fire rescue teams come from Charleston, Seattle, a lot of the major, California, a lot of the major Boeing facilities across the country, and then the Starliner program teams come from Houston and Florida mostly. So they have taken, over the past couple of years, 4 or 5 times, they all come together and run through these exercises, and then individually each team kind of practices their routines multiple times throughout the year, make sure everyone stays fresh, knows exactly what they're doing. Pretty delicate operation, and there's some very time-critical elements to it, especially when we get crew on board. This time, since it's the first time the team is actually doing it for real, we're taking our time. There's not crew inside, but we do have a requirement to get crew out of the vehicle.
No, Joe, you don't need to see the stars and stripes.
But this time the vehicle landed and powered itself off, and so that kind of gave the team plenty of time to make sure that they're doing this right, they're doing it deliberately and intentionally. And, really the biggest time-critical thing was getting that environmental enclosure over the vehicle and heating it up a little bit in this kind of frigid desert air.
And Josh, we do have a report that goes along with your no scorch marks observation there. The re-entry cabin heating was a notably lower change in temperatures, which indicates a better than expected performance of the re-entry system. That's really good news, and I think this is it sounds like it's going to make it an easier refurbishment operation. You're the one who is out there in Florida all the time with the factory and with the refurbishment. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I actually, it'll be really great to see this vehicle back in Florida, because right now we have our other 2 spacecraft. The pad abort vehicle is in the factory, as well as the crew flight test vehicle. And, back when I first joined the program about 2 years ago, it was really awesome seeing 3 vehicles in flow. So when this comes back to Florida and they start processing it for Sunny and Josh's flight, plus the 2 international astronauts that are assigned to the vehicle, it'll be nice to see. It'll be kind of like getting the family back together.
I bet a lot of people are going to be excited to see it back in Florida.
Yeah, that's right. And, in the meantime, while we test and process and refurbish this vehicle for the next flight, the crew flight test vehicle is going through kind of final processing right now. The pad abort vehicle, we actually will not fly that to space, but we will keep it around just in case we need any spare parts from it. So that we'll have that in Florida as well for a while. But that was really cool seeing it come back. If you watched the pad abort test, you might have seen all the signatures from everyone who worked so hard on it. We couldn't sign this vehicle. Again, the thermal protection system kind of inhibited us from putting Sharpie marker on it, but still a beautiful vehicle. It's kind of a shame the environmental enclosures covered it up right now, but again, we're just doing that to make sure the vehicle stays safe and healthy so we can use it again.
And Josh, we want you to stand by. We want to go to Tori Wills-Pedrati, who's one of the engineers who worked with this heat shield. And Tori, you've heard Josh's description of the spacecraft. Light scorch marks. Nothing.
Yeah, Joey, that's what I was saying before.
When it went into space, what does that tell you?
That was the whole premise of me using the Australian flag on the ball.
Anything during landing and re-entry, but seeing it and hearing that the inside of the vehicle was even better than we expected just is such a great feeling to know that we not only did our job, but better than we hoped it would perform. So that's
yeah, that'd be funny,
really good to hear, and I think that puts a lot of confidence in these systems going forward.
Tori, I think we lost the first part of your question. Can we get you to run back over it?
Yeah, of course. So I was just saying that listening to Josh and seeing that the vehicle was as clean as it was, and Jimmy and I were talking about it in the studio just a few minutes ago, that the vehicle looks fantastic on the ground there, right? White, clean, way better than what we were expecting to see. We're expecting to see some char marks, maybe a little.
Are you calling through the Wi-Fi?
So it's really good looking out there, and it really just puts confidence in the analysis that we've done and the models.
Martian flag.
Jim, does this look the way that you expected it to?
You know, it looked better than I expected it to. So I was really thinking that we were going to see at least a little bit of scorching right around where the shoulder comes up onto the vehicle, but those tiles are in all of the right places and they look just like they did when they left the factory. So that is a phenomenal thing to see.
Hey, we got it.
Thank you, Tori. And Jim, you're seeing seeing all this. You're seeing what the crew's going to see. How's this going? What are you thinking right now?
So for the crew involvement, one, the vehicle looking the way it does means good things for them coming back, but it also means good things for the parts.
I guess they just popped into the side chat, everyone.
So we are.
Oh, Bandy must have got home from his date.
Yes, Bandy.
To do the crew procedures and also using for
Randy Bandy.
Training while they're up on orbit, things of that nature that are inside of the spacecraft.
Had no flag with Lord Trump on it,
well, are going to be reused on later flights. So that's a good thing, seeing the vehicle the way it is.
Oh, who's got the key for the hatch?
Now of the,
oh, who's got the key?
Coming out, Josh. Do we still have you out there?
We lost the key.
Again,
must be me other pants.
Engineers doing a dope part working on opening the hatch. So. Right now, she's got a couple of different tools. So the hatch seals itself, it is actually a little difficult to open. It's kind of like two suction cups.
Phrasing, Bandy.
And so she's working on what's called burping the seal. So she's kind of opening up a valve to allow a little bit of air into the seal, and hopefully that'll just give her enough give to get that hatch open. She's already kind of cranked the latch.
Okay, Roger.
So she's, again, working on burping the seal right now. If that doesn't quite work, there's another release valve that she'll kind of use to pop the seal. And that's if they start working on something kind of in the middle of the hatch. That's what they'll be working on. It looks like that might be what they're doing right now.
I mean, they haven't got the right tool handy to do it.
Been trying to.
That's pathetic, that is.
Burp that seal. Yes, that is the technical term.
That's very descriptive.
Yeah. Well,
what will happen after that once they do have that seal burped?
So again, if they can, if that gets enough air into that seal, they'll be able to, release the hatch seal.
What if there was astronauts in there and they're running out of air?
So that's what they're working on right now.
Well, that's the trouble, Terry. The problem is that there's a pressure differential between the air inside, or between the atmosphere inside and the atmosphere outside.
We're getting really good views right over the shoulder, so these are great.
So if they're running out of air on the inside, it wouldn't be a problem.
We got it a little earlier. The fire rescue team, when they're putting that platform into place, I mean,
I'm looking who's in the chat now, Terry.
Their calls orchestrate the operation is really
bit
fun to watch.
Bit of casual spaceman out there.
Hey, casual spaceman. We're still going. Still watching it. You can pop in if you want. I can't get you the link at the moment. I might have to send the secretary out.
Getting a TV signal out of a remote landing site in the desert.
Make sure you wear your nice dress for casual, Peter.
Alright.
And Josh, we do have confirmation that it appears they've relieved the pressure on the seal. Looks like they're getting close to pulling it open here.
All right. Well, while they work on that, Steve and Brandy, I'm
Spaceman, I know what's going on. I'm just
find the crew members and hear from them.
Oh, forget it.
From their perspective of how that went, and we'll get them on camera for you guys here momentarily.
We'll stand by. Thank you. And since we are just hitting the top of the hour, I wanted to remind everybody that in about an hour at 9 a.m. Central is our target time. We are planning to have our post-landing news conference. That's going to feature NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine, Boeing's Senior Vice President of Space and Launch.
Is Casual Spaceman picking up a New Zealand accent?
NASA's Deputy Director of the Commercial Crew Program, Steve
Read his
Stitch,
last
will
comment.
be joining us at 9 a.m.
Probably.
Central Time for a post-landing news conference.
Sheeple, you been talking to Casual?
Who want to participate in that can call the Johnson Space Center newsroom at 281-483-5111.
And for those just joining us here at the top,
Yeah, the flag's in the red doorknob.
Watch for the door, Terry.
Yeah, I didn't hear it for some reason.
Sheep was counting sheep at the moment, I think.
Why didn't I hear the
and
doorbell?
We do have views now. The hatch is open. Starliner's
Maybe I wasn't
OFT
listening
hatch
properly.
Is open.
Hello, can you hear me?
Rosie,
yeah, I didn't hear the doorbell.
Rocketeer and the
oh, didn't you?
low gravity indicator Snoopy.
Go and check it again. See if it's working.
Along with a lot of commemorative cargo.
So they're having a bit of a drama getting the door open, are they?
I can't work out why they can't just open the door.
In commemoration of this.
I don't know.
Of course, a lot of things were learned on this flight. It is the first flight test of Boeing Starliner.
I mean, don't forget, you know, what everybody's got to remember is that this is all
Ground
testing.
crew's
You know,
getting
this
their
is
first look inside the cabin.
You know, so things do go a bit wrong during testing. But I wouldn't worry. They're not going to. If there was a crew in there, they wouldn't be running out of oxygen. I can assure you that.
I know that. Yeah, but what if the bloke was? What if one of the astronauts was claustrophobic and he's saying, "Get me out of here"?
In the hatch is actually
well, like I said, you know, but by that time they would have a door opening process that actually worked quite quick.
A can opener.
To do an
a can opener.
Emergency egress, then yeah.
Casual, it'd be somewhat like the space suits, wouldn't it? It'd be at a somewhat lower atmospheric pressure to the air, so the whole spacecraft itself would be like almost holding the door in.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, probably it'd be probably in around about 5-6 psi, something like that.
Yep.
So yeah, so differential from from sea level, obviously. Yeah.
Well, the ISS is about 7 psi, isn't it?
Well, looks like they got the door open now, by the looks of things.
Yeah.
This flight test produced a lot of data for engineers, a lot of information, and a lot of operational processes to see how it.
You're very quiet, Alan. Can hardly hear you.
And of course, two of the big parts of that are the launch and then the return to Earth. These are very dynamic events, shouldn't be overlooked.
No, Alan's roboting because he's probably using the stream, taking up all his bandwidth.
This morning.
So there you go. One going in now. So I had to go out. So how long have they been working at the door for?
Engineer.
At least 5-10 minutes. 5 minutes.
Oh, that's not too bad. That's not too bad.
Selena Dopart.
Is that any better?
Yeah, that's heaps better.
That's much better.
Much better, yeah.
Where did you leave it at, Casual? They did land, didn't they?
For those who are just
yeah. Landed it, and the vehicles are all starting to surround the surround the capsule and stuff like that. And so I had to end the stream because I had to go out after that. So I didn't think that would be going on as long as this. To be fair,
I was going to go on your side chat and tell everyone to come over here if you had when you went.
You trying to take viewers away from me, cheeky git.
No, they still but they still view viewed your video, your stream.
I know, I'm only joking.
But we do have Rosie the Rocketeer in the commander's
We got enough to go around.
metric test device.
Oh, I was bloody stressed this morning, Jesus Christ.
She's outfitted with all kinds of instruments. That's going to.
We're trying to look at the capsule. We're not looking at anything else.
Are the crew can expect a really good ride down.
He meant the booties that go over the boots, Terry.
Sorry.
Not the other booty.
Booty. Oh, okay. You went to the doctor today, Casual, or yesterday?
Well, I had X-rays done on Friday.
Oh, okay.
No, That was on Monday. I was supposed to ring up for the results on Friday, but what with everything happening and stuff like that, I forgot. So yeah, I've got blood tests to do tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, maybe they should show something.
It was funny because yesterday I hardly coughed at all, and then last night I didn't hardly coughed at all until about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and then I just started up coughing again. So it's been like this. I think I'm getting better, and then I get worse again. As you probably tell from my voice has gone a bit weird as well.
Sorry guys, gotta go. Rosie and Nathan are taking me out for lunch.
Oh, you lucky bugger! Can't take us too.
Rosie, come and get me. Take me out as well.
Yeah, take all of us.
I think it might be a bit of a drive to you, Casual. Sorry.
Be a bit more of a drive to Australia, to be fair.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'll chuck in $5 for petrol.
Landing recovery team that Ozzie the Rocketeer is
I've got a room that you can use.
A room?
Yeah, if you wanted to, like drink and stay over the night. There's a spare room that Nathan and Rosie can have here.
Yeah, but they're picking us up to take us out, not.
I meant like after the day on the town, Terry.
Oh, okay.
Oh, right. So the carry on the party at your house then, Peter.
Okay.
Yeah. I got bunk bed.
Well, that's where I was going to put the girls, actually. But...
by on this, we do have another
They just get married to do one bunk bed.
After Starliner's touchdown from our NASA photographers there.
Later, Alan.
See you, Alan.
See you tomorrow, probably.
Yeah, probably. Bye.
Bye, Alan. Have a nice lunch.
Bye. So
well,
10 minutes working at the door.
I'm going to be out all day tomorrow. Sorry. Sorry,
so
Cash.
10 minutes working at this door is not too bad, actually, because I've seen the soils. They can be working at the door for a little while as well.
Okay.
To get them out. So, no dramas.
Yeah, they said they had to. They said they had to release the pressure before they could open it.
Yeah, but they said that.
Sorry,
they said there was 2 pressure points that they could do. If one didn't work, they had the other one.
NASA photographers on the scene.
Yeah, you probably got an external door and an internal door, and there's probably a pressure between the two. So a bit like having like 2 things stuck together, like 2 suction pads stuck together, sort of thing.
Yeah, like a
pressure from that.
Like a vacuum flask on the inside.
Yeah.
It'd be like when you shut your fridge door too tight when it's a hot day or a cold day. One of I forget if it's with.
It really was
and then you can't open
hot
it
day,
again.
Isn't it? Usually, if you open the freezer and you close it again, you can't open it for a little while, can you?
Yeah.
Because
now we're back to live imagery
pressure
of the
difference.
recovery team. So they look in on the hatch.
Oh, my hearing things are beeping me. I'll be back in a sec. I'll change the battery.
So they got the gantry up to the doorway there, as if it, look as if they have got a crew, So they're going through the whole process.
Yeah, I think they said that earlier, Coach, that they were going through the whole as if they've got a crew, so that everyone can go through their steps of debusing the astronauts if they were in fact inside.
Yeah. Oh, I think, do you see that vehicle on the right-hand side? I've seen photographs of that on Twitter and stuff from Boeing and NASA. I think that's the vehicle that the astronauts travel in. So yeah, it's all there as well.
We expect to hear momentarily from the landing team there on site, we think are just about to get into place with the next crew to fly on a Starliner, the first crew to fly on a Starliner. NASA's Mike Fagan,
back again,
along with Boeing's.
So it's all a bit of a debate at the moment whether everything that happened to Starliner, whether they're actually going to need to repeat this test or not, because Jim Bridenstine wasn't really sort of saying whether it is a requirement for the spacecraft to actually dock with a crew on board. And also another thing, what they actually did was they've got a docking mechanism actually obviously on the top of the spacecraft. So what they were doing is they were testing the docking mechanism to make sure it worked properly.
Yeah.
And apparently it all worked quite well. So again, I don't know if they do decide they're going to repeat the test. It's going to put back Starliner months again, and they're already a few months behind. Already a few months behind SpaceX and their Dragon at the moment.
No, we don't put shrimps on a Barbie.
Who's saying that?
Oh, NA. Bloody, bloody those ads they sent to the America. They give us all a bad rap. That did to what we're really like here.
Why can't you? What's wrong with putting shrimps in the barbie anyway?
Blame Crocodile Dundee.
So shrimps are these little itty bitty little crayfish, where we put prawns on a barbie.
Oh, okay.
But
Shrimp
not
are the
all of
crappy
us.
things you get in a prawn cocktail over here.
But not all of us do this prawn thing. I don't know what part of society does the prawn.
I put shrimp on a doll.
Yeah, well, each nation's got their own stereotypical stuff going on, haven't they? You know?
Yeah, I've got haggis.
Yeah. And the English think we're all drinking tea out of little teacups every day and stuff like that.
Cucumber sandwiches.
Excuse me, Casual. Don't forget the scones and cream.
Oh, now there's nothing wrong with scones and cream. I like scones and cream. I love scones and cream.
Scones.
Clotted cream, I might add.
They're scones.
Scones, yes, scones.
Scones, whatever you want to call them. I don't really care.
Speak proper English.
I call them scones. There's two different things even in England. Some people call it scones, some people call it scones.
It's just the posh way to say it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's a town in Scotland called Scone.
I've been to like a proper tea house and have afternoon tea, and it's really nice. Don't get me wrong.
Doorknob, Foster's is not Australian. That's only for the overseas market.
They shuffle around.
The strange, most Australians are the popular one would be 4X, wouldn't it?
That's Queensland beer because they can't. They're so daft up there. They can't even spell beer, so they just call it 4X.
Foster's is a bit like sex in a canoe.
There's a lot of activity.
Effing close to water.
That's like Bud Light. That's the same.
No, the drop I drink casual's called Carlton Draft.
Oh right, yeah, I've heard about that.
Less remote than the shuttle, but a little more remote.
I like all kinds of beers, really. I don't. Foster's is naff. That's just water. I do like Coors Light. I mean, but Coors Light, okay, it's probably got about the same amount of alcohol, but it's got much better taste than Foster's.
How are you doing, Dan?
Bud Light occasionally. Budweiser would be one of my favourites.
Nah, too old today. I'm still the best one.
I like Sol. What else do I like? I like Peroni. That's a good Italian beer. That's nice.
This is your first spacecraft landing. This is my first spacecraft landing. It was incredible in seeing.
Demon Knob says, I want barbecue now.
Crystal clear day.
Yeah, I want a barbecue and a beer.
Good double sonic boom.
Well, I got plenty of gas for the barbecue. You bring the food.
You fire it up, Castle. I'll be over in a bit.
Oh, right, okay, yeah, I'll get it lit now.
Get the next boat. Hey, Logical.
Yeah, it would take you long. Technically speaking, you could be over here in about an hour and a half, couldn't you?
Yep.
Airbags and a beautiful soft landing. Can't wait to try it out.
So we had a flawless launch. We had a couple of issues once we were up there. What's it mean now to see?
Sorry, Truggy, I didn't get to watch you and the stream with Blue and that on it. I had it here ready to spy on it, but I didn't get a chance to.
The orbital portion of the flight, the ECLIS system, that's environmental control life support. Everything's worked great.
Ollie just dropped another video too.
You should be in the shield your shit.
Yeah, he is. He is.
Now, Chris, I remember when I was with you down in the
Hey, Colon.
and you talked about how much different this is going to be coming back than the shuttle because you're almost coming in backwards. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Hi, Colin.
Yeah, what really impressed me was, the shuttle sort of glided into the atmosphere, and at the sort of at the end game, it was pretty steep. This was really steep. So it almost.
Well, this is going on longer than what I thought it would have.
Gravity sort of took
yeah, likewise.
1:15 here.
So
Barbecue kangaroo. Kangaroo's nice.
For SpaceX version of this, their Dragon, they've got in-flight abort test to do. That's on the 11th of January. So that's pretty crucial. So basically, the capsule has to depart from the rocket as if it's all going horribly wrong in the middle of a launch.
Yeah, I might go through it, Troggy.
Now, the reason we took a little bit to get you guys over here, we had to go
just
get you away from that
bits
base
and
heat
pieces
shield.
out of it and watch it online.
Seeing the crew module and the heat shields around.
Yeah, so if that goes well, Crew Dragon would be more or less crew rated after that point. They've done all the parachute tests; they've all been successful. They've all been fine.
You could see when it impacted the ground that it had a little damage, but other than that,
We got somewhere where we can go to see where all these launches and everything can be read out or looked at for in their timeline of when they're.
Yeah, there's apps you can use. Hang on a minute, let me just find the one that I used to use on the internet a lot.
Nope, there's Jen as well. I'm guessing America's waking up.
What?
Granny Jen's made it in there.
Oh.
I guess the States are waking up now.
Everyone's waking up now.
I'm going to put it on the outside chat, but there's one called Spaceflight Now launch schedule, which pretty much schedules all the launches and stuff like that goes on.
Well, it is 9:15 yesterday over there, so that's Monday, is it? No, Sunday. So it's Sunday morning.
No, it's Sunday.
Sunday morning.
Yeah, Sunday afternoon here.
Yes, it's Monday morning here now.
Work through issues at the beginning, but then you got a lot of stuff done. And of course, today's land.
There you go. I'll put the link in the internal chat for you as well, Terry.
Yeah, I'll copy it over onto Discord.
But there's an app actually which is really much better. I don't know what you can. Hang on a minute. Let's see what it's called. Next Spaceflight, and it doesn't just do all the launches. It also does all the events as well. Things like these sort of things as well. It lists all those sort of things, and any tests or ISS spacewalks and all kinds of different things.
I'll put in Tech Doc's video.
None of us do all
That's
this
where that sort of stuff goes.
I am definitely a part of one of the most exceptional teams that I've
Boggs. Boggs put something in the wrong section.
With this flight, the team members,
I'll have to move
every
that.
single one contributed in their own way and contributed to the successful outcome.
I'll move it around later. I'm not going to do it tonight.
I feel like a lot of this.
I noticed on the bottom of your videos you put the disclaimers. Should I be doing that on mine?
We've had a lot of simulations going through all of these things.
Right
Are you talking to me?
It's kind of
yeah, casual.
No, I didn't put any
on the bottom
disclaimers.
of your video, right at the bottom, you had the Creative Commons stuff.
Oh, that's something that YouTube does automatically. I think No, you don't need to do anything like that. No, not really. What you really should do is credit NASA or credit Boeing, whoever you're actually doing, and I'll put that in my description at some point. I'll put credit in it once it's posted up.
We were working really hard.
But no, I set all my videos at Creative Commons anyway, so anybody can use my videos. I don't really care what they do.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's something YouTube puts in
you had,
themselves.
of course, this great seat where you saw all the telemetry of the vehicle as it came down, as it landed.
Well, I haven't got enough subs to really worry about anything at the moment, I don't think. Except for my copyright strikes, things I get, soft strikes I get.
How did that look to you?
But I haven't got them for a while.
Yeah, they're only copyright claims. They're not strikes. They don't affect you in any way.
No, they haven't affected me.
During re-entry where we
I get all those all the time, usually with music, pretty much all the time with music.
My stream gets stopped my stream gets stopped and then restarts.
It can do, yeah, it can do. Particularly if you're doing streams like you do for a long time, and they pick it up. But usually mine are an hour or two at the most. And by the time the system realizes and picks it up, it could be days later anyway. So
it's just YouTube's way of telling you to behave yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
This vehicle, but its vehicle, their vehicle.
Yeah, you more than anything else, you just need to be careful in music because, say for instance, like you got this stream here from NASA, they can have a third-party agreement with somebody else to stream some music, but trouble is you don't have the same agreement, and that's the problem. That's what happens. But it doesn't really go against you because usually they give you an option to remove the music, don't they? So
yeah, well, I've re-edited it and put it back up.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's only one that I think that I've got that I couldn't do it to.
Their hometown.
Yeah, I'll get the odd one that I can't do anything about, in which case that particular video gets demonetized. It's like, yeah, whatever. As long as the majority of mine are getting monetized, I don't really care because I'm not earning much from ad revenue anyway, so whatever.
I will look back on this and just remember the people that
it's not going to make a huge difference to my pocket. Not at this stage, anyway.
No, when you can start doing some hangouts, it'll be all right.
They were just down the hall.
Yeah.
Florida. The ULA team members that we had, the mission management team.
I just want to make sure my flipping audio works for once. I mean, like every stream, I always get something that's not quite right.
Did you see the video capture of my OBS audio section?
No, I didn't. I'll have a look at it later. I figured out what it was in the end, and it was just one little setting that I missed because I had to set it all back up again. There was just one little thing that I actually missed, and that was it. It took me a little while to figure it out, but I was about ready to give up. And I thought, right, sod it, I'm going to go step by step through everything. And I realised what it was.
The cargo did just fine. It's I would love to see Rosie just sitting there.
I mean, if OBS hadn't flipping updated and reset everything, I wouldn't have had all that problem.
That's what it looks like to me.
I can't understand why their software resets, software updates should do that. There's no reason why it should.
Yeah, I haven't had a problem with mine yet.
Yeah. Looks like.
Oh, haven't you? Is it not? Have you not lost all your settings when you've updated it? Updated OBS, no. Bastard, what it did with me. I lost all my scenes and everything. It had all gone, all vanished.
This new vehicle. That's some interesting bookends.
It is, and being a part of STS-135.
There really isn't a lot of room in there, is there?
Well, to be fair, there's a fair bit of cargo actually for the ISS that was meant for the ISS in there anyway. That's what you're seeing at the moment. If there was crew in there,
I hope the ISS can go without the supplies for now.
I think it was mostly just fresh experiments and things like that. I don't think there was any like crew supplies as such, food or water or anything like that.
Needs to do and get ready for between now and then.
I've been Christmas presents.
You know what we need to do is we need to.
But of course, they want to have the right amount of weight in it as well, don't they? So, to a certain extent, they're using it as ballast, don't they? So.
Look where things can be improved. Look where things don't need to be improved. Because
so there would have been three crew members in there. So they want to have the weight of the 3 crew members.
Both of those categories, and really look at it with the eye in terms of what really has to happen. In terms of changing,
but then if you notice the difference, if you look inside it, the difference between that and the Apollo capsules.
I really appreciate it.
No, I mean the Apollo capsules, there was buttons and switches everywhere, all over it, every wall almost covered in switches. But it's all it's all very minimalistic now. Most of it's all touch screen. They can swing a screen down, and it's all touch screen. And if you look at the Dragon one, it's even more minimalistic. It's even less.
Hey, you don't have to worry about reaching over and hitting the wrong switch by accident.
They may not quite have heard us, so I'm going to try again. Sunny and Rebecca, can you hear us?
Yeah, John, I was going to say shoot first, questions later.
I am here with Sunny Williams. She is going to be the first post-certification mission commander of the ship that's behind us
place for arrival of alien stowaways.
I've seen you interacting with our employees.
Test equip and probes.
Brief meeting. Every time you're like, you have got to bring the ship back home so I can get into space with Josh.
Alien revenge prober.
So give us a recap of how you were feeling watching, Starliner return from space out here.
Yeah, I was really pretty unbelievable. It was picture perfect. Everything about it was just amazing, from seeing the tail as it flew in. Well, first of all, seeing the space station fly over.
Logical Troglodyte, he said he had 15 seconds of music in one of his 2 hour and 45 minutes live shows. Jerk's copyright struck the whole damn thing. Yeah, I know, they do that. 15 bloody seconds.
It was just picture perfect. We had a beautiful.
I think there should be at least a rule. I think you should be allowed at least 30 seconds of a piece of music or something like that,
Yeah, but it's the blanket rule that it's the monetization of the actual video. Funds got to go to the creator and all that.
I think the actual regulations for that have just recently changed with everything else. Casual, I think they.
I know. It's all to do with the laws more than anything else, copyright laws. But yeah.
But they've extended the old time from 3 seconds. I think it's up to 5 seconds now, just in case that, like, if you're doing a live stream on a street and a car drives past with the radio blaring, you can actually get away with it.
Yeah, his ship, Calypso, and so you're an avid diver, right? So walk me through why you think that name is fitting.
Yeah, of course, I love the ocean. I love what the ocean means to this planet. We would not be this planet without the ocean. There's so much to discover in the ocean, and there's so
John
much
Rapp, I want that job. Alien probe.
Yeah, alien prober.
Thank you so much for being here, and I can't wait to get you on that vehicle flying to the International Space Station.
Alien revenge prober.
Thanks, everyone.
That's the one.
Revenge for what, though, John? Revenge for what exactly?
Now for the Starliner spacecraft that has returned today to the sands of New Mexico.
Calypso named by astronaut Sunny Williams, who, along with her crewmate Josh Cassada and a few more yet to be named, will be flying on this very vehicle the next time it goes to space.
So a lot of activity out at the spacecraft today.
Yeah, it'll be a little while before these crews are able to come back
what
in.
they said before, they brought everything there, even the ambulance trucks, and just like as if they were getting the crew out.
A little over half an hour away.
Yeah,
so it's just like a dry run, really. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing was meant to be a dry run, really. Whole thing.
Space and Launch for Boeing, and our commercial crew deputy director Steve Stitch. Again, 9 a.m. Central Time here on NASA TV.
I noticed they put a cover over around the capsule by the looks of things.
Yeah, to maintain the temperature and keep dust out of it and all that sort of stuff.
It's a kind of pop-up tent thing.
Yeah. I missed all that.
Yeah, to keep the temperature right so that things don't freeze up because it was cold earlier. But they didn't put it put it on till late. The sun was not out by then.
No, it was about 20 minutes or something, wasn't it? 20 minutes after it landed.
So I'd say it's not just for the temperature, it's also for any dust and all that.
Well, maybe they're waiting for the capsule to cool down. It would have been roasting hot.
Yeah,
I think part of it is also to when they open up the capsule itself out in the desert to stop it, the fine particles of dust getting in and screwing with any of the insides, like all of the components on the inside of the vessel itself.
Well, like typical Americans, they've even got to put an American flag on the little gantry there as well.
Yeah, I picked up on that earlier.
Yeah, they've got to do that, haven't they?
Yeah.
Just in case they forget.
America.
America.
Why do you think I've got an Australian flag on the ball, Casual? It's to take a rib at the Americans for having a flag on everything.
It's also got a Union flag on it too.
Well, that's why you're allowed here, Pip.
Astronaut Sunny Williams looking to the cabin of Starliner. That is her ship next. That is the good ship Calypso, named by NASA astronaut Sunny Williams, who will command it on its first operational mission to the International Space Station. Of course, before she does that, there'll be the crewed flight test.
Well, I don't think there's any more to see here.
NASA's Chris Ferguson.
No,
I think they're just going to be like this for a while.
And NASA's Mike Fink.
I think the next bit that they'll probably the next interesting bit will be when they load it onto a truck or something like that, Terry.
Yeah, but that could be hours and hours away yet. I'm not staying up all night if they're going to show that.
And of course,
Welcome back, Carl. Didn't know you were gone.
Yeah, we didn't even know you went, Carl.
That's how good a lurker you are.
Very good shape.
The day he spells the right, you got dyslexic fingers for the E and the H. Pull the H key button off and pull the E button off and swap them around. So when you type, it'll come out the right way. Here we go. Latest changes. So what's this launch schedule? Launch changes. So we do have a delayed Starlink 2, Falcon 9. That was for the 21st. Dates go up the other way, don't they? Okay.
Yeah, the next big launch you got is Starlink 2, which is on the 4th of January, and then you got the SpaceX Crew Dragon and flight abort test, and that's on the 11th of January.
So we've got a Proton from December 24th from Kazakhstan.
Yeah, you can do the Proton if you want. Yeah, you do
December 26th from Russia. From China on the 27th. January 3rd, 4th, Falcon 9, Starlink 2. From Florida.
Yeah, Starlink 2 is actually confirmed as January the 4th.
TBD.
Trouble is, for me, the Starlink 2 is at 3:23 in the morning at my time.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's very rude.
Lots of coffee, Casual. Lots of coffee.
Yeah, I probably will still do it.
Terry, that means it'll be a good time for us.
Casual. That time's better for us, so I'd say you can miss out.
Just letting you know, I'm in bed.
I'm still going to do it. No, I'm still doing it, buddy. Sorry.
That'll be like 2 in the afternoon for us, Terry.
Yeah, we'll be wide awake, and Casual will be there half asleep.
And obviously, I'll be in bed.
Well, I tell you what, the way my sleep pattern is, I'll probably be as awake as you are, if not more awake.
Inaugural flight, Launcher 1. I don't know what this one means to be TBD.
Virgin orbit.
To be determined.
Okay.
The Virgin one.
Delayed from early 29 and summer 29. Okay. I'll have to watch this space for that one. Sometime in January there's going to be a SSLV demonstration launch from India. Okay.
Oh, that would be Professor Phil.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
January, Falcon 9, Starlink 3. Launch time still got to be determined. 16. Same again from French Guiana. Where was that other one to be? Yeah, Canaveral. Japan.
Yeah, we might have Starlink 1, 2, 3, and 4 in January, possibly. Might have 3 launches in one month.
Yeah.
The turnaround for these wouldn't be very long, would they? Casual, as in by the time they take it back to Florida, refurb it.
No, they've got it down to a few weeks now. So yeah, it's not long. Yeah, it's not long. There's not a whole lot of refurbishment they need to do, really.
That could be obviously things like changing the bags, new parachutes, new heat shields, and
well, there is no parachutes on the Falcon 9.
No, I meant on the what's it called? The Star.
Don't know what you mean.
You want me to swatch the Starliner?
The Starliner.
The only bit. Oh, sorry, you're talking about Starliner. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I thought you meant the Falcon 9. We were talking about Falcon 9. I thought you were talking about that.
No.
I don't know how long it would take to refurbish that particular thing. I'm not sure. Don't know. Sorry.
February, the Falcon 9 Crew Dragon demo 2.
Yeah. No, because this is a test vehicle, obviously they want to pour all over it, get all the data and stuff like that. So who knows? It could take months. Who knows? I have no idea. Really don't know. What their plans are to actually get the refurbishment to fly again once they actually have them working in crews and going up backwards and forwards. They've probably got time anyway, because it'll be months between each time they launch anyway, several months.
So at the end of the year, but they said mid-February, Launcher 1 A Virgin Orbit Launcher 1 rocket will launch on its second flight after dropping from a modified 747 carrier jet. Wow. That'd be interesting.
Oh, is this the Virgin thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why the hell are you using a Boeing?
Spy satellite.
Shh, don't tell anyone.
Shh. Yeah, don't tell no one.
What's that, Chinese? Change 5's mission to return samples from the moon. Okay. Don't we have samples from the moon?
Always nice to get some more.
SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will launch a 22nd Dragon. Is it just me or SpaceX, the way the rocket boosters land back is just amazing?
Yeah.
I could watch that. Oh, I could watch that forever. I'd love to go and see it.
Thing is,
SpaceX
weren't the first to actually land back a rocket upright like that, but they're the first orbital rated spacecraft to do that. Because actually, it was actually Blue Origin that first managed to do it the first time round.
Oh, did they? Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah, but they're but SpaceX are the first commercial company to actually do that as an orbital classed vehicle. In other words, an orbital class means it can potentially orbit and it can re-land the first stage.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. I'd watch it forever.
You're going to get a lot more that are going to follow suit soon. I mean, I know the European Space Agency are at the moment planning one. They want to catch up with that kind of thing. I think ULA are going to have to at some point, but ULA at the moment, they've got the biggest slice of the market in terms of satellite commercial launches at the moment. They're still the biggest share. But SpaceX will rapidly catch up because they're managing to actually much cheaper than anybody else because of the reusability.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, their satellite launches are a means to an end, really, because they're just trying to get revenue in. Ultimately, that's going to be for Starship eventually to go to the moon and then to Mars.
Yeah.
They're saying there's another test in mid-2020 for an Atlas V Starliner crew flight. It says test, crew flight test. I don't know what that one's about. We'll launch Boeing Starship.
That's the actual test with the crew on board. That's what they had planned for.
2020.
Yeah, that's the original plan. So that'll be, again, it'll be a test, but it'll be a test with actual crew on board.
With people on it.
Yeah, that's all.
Darkman, it's not a Gala, it's an African grey.
So they're using the Delta Heavy to launch a... Oh, jeez. More spy stuff. Cargo delivery.
Yeah, United Launch Alliance or ULA, they get most of the military contracts. In other words, the spy satellites and stuff like that. Although they often don't admit that they're actually launching a spy satellite, of course. It's always a communication satellite of some sort. That's what they call it. But you know full well it's a military satellite of some sort.
Okay, July 17, Atlas V, Mars 2020.
Yeah, that's right, Mars 2020. Looking forward to that one.
Yep.
And that'll be landing sometime in spring of 2021 on Mars, all going well. But in fact, during that time, within about 2 months, there's about 3 different probes. A Chinese one, you've got Mars 2020, and also a European Space Agency are landing probes on Mars as well. It's because the approach of Mars to Earth at that time is quite close.
So we have to wait till 21. February 21 for the landing.
Yeah, around March, April 2021 for the landing of those probes and stuff. But the key thing about Mars 2020 rover is it's got a whole lot more science on board than it ever has done before. And also it's got a machine on board that's going to test to see whether it can actually convert the Mars atmosphere and make oxygen. So it's going to test to see a particular process to see if that actually works, and also produce water as well from the atmosphere, but mostly oxygen. That's what they're hoping to do. So that's kind of a key kind of experiment, really.
Yes, it will be.
Yeah, as well as they're going to drill down a lot deeper into the ground as well. And also on board, there's going to be like a little miniature helicopter, a little little drone.
Like a drone, yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to come off that. It's going to come off to Mars 2020, and it'll be able to sort of like scout the area, kind of thing. So that's what they're planning on doing. So yeah. So it's quite a good one, that one. And the Mars 2020 rover, they're actually testing it the other day. It was actually moving for the first time the other day. So they got that go up and running. So they're testing that at the moment. So yeah, lots more tests to do yet.
All right, Terry. Well, I might drop.
Yeah, I was just gonna start wrapping it up because I noticed we've been going for 2:50.
20 to 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
You don't usually do a stream on a Sunday, do you? You and me?
No.
It was only because of this. Was at the start.
Yeah, it was only because of because I wanted to do these sort of things when I knew they were being done. I'm finding it more interest with it because they're more regular.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be a lot more.
Yep.
In the coming months.
Well, it's only the time. If they were a bit earlier on in the night, maybe. But then again, by the look of it, if it's our night time, it's night time there almost. I wouldn't mind if it was daytime when we've seen stuff, but
yeah.
Okay then. We'll all finish up here now anyway. Thanks everyone for hanging in there. Thanks Casual for dropping
everyone.
in.
Thank you everyone.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it as always.
And we'll see you. If we don't see you before Christmas, have a good one. And we'll
Merry Christmas everyone, and a Happy New Year if we don't see you before then.
Keep safe when you're on the road.
Yes. Yeah,
don't drink and drive.
Yeah, drink, drive, stay alive. Don't drink and drive, stay alive.
Get a taxi.
Yeah, get a taxi. Even if you had one drink, get a taxi.
Preferably mine, but there you go.
Okay then. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night. Line me your Limerick.